Go. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. More now on Mort Saul. In the 1960s, he told the Voice of America why he thought political humor was so important.
Yeah, well, this society shows no signs of a utopia. There are a great many things that bear attacking. I think that the best thing anybody can do for this country is, this country really needs a critic. I was once talking to a girl who belonged to the Democratic Party in Massachusetts, and she was critical of one of the candidates, and she said to me, "He really isn't fit, in my view." I said, "What are you going to do when you're called upon to vote?" She said, "Well, I'm a good party girl. I'm going to vote for him." And it occurred to me that maybe the best thing she could do for her party was not to vote for him. Maybe the best thing you can do for your party is to criticize. You know, the old term, His Majesty's loyal opposition. I think this country needs a critic in order to survive, as a matter of fact. It needs more than one, but so far it has one. You need somebody on the attack who audits what we do.
US investors will be turning their attention this week to the health of the US labour market. It comes after data released last week showed the US economy grew sluggishly last quarter. From FSN's business desk in New York with the preview, Will Denzelo.
The US economy added 194,000 jobs in September, well short of the 500,000 some analysts had expected. On Friday, October's jobs report is due out, and investors will be hoping for signs of strength in the US labour market. Wall Street will be looking for positive news this week following some recent tepid pieces of economic data. Consumer spending data out Friday ticked up 0.6%, which was largely in line with predictions, but inflation was seen as a major contributing factor. William Denzelo, New York.
In the coming week, our focus will be intensely on COP26, the climate change summit in Glasgow. The FSN team is there. You'll hear their reports here and follow them on Twitter at Feature Story. And that's the Week in Review from Feature Story News. Simon Marks reporting.
The dangerous winter storm Rocky is expected to pummel the Midwest throughout the day, with meteorologists predicting the blizzard will hit Kevin Hodges of Joliet, Illinois, the hardest, given the way his year's been going.
Yeah, we're stocking up on everything. I think school's going to be canceled. We're just glad we're not Kevin right now.
Joining us now is Jordan Blake in Chicago. Hello, Jordan. Just how crippling will this storm be for Kevin?
Well, we've already seen a lot of damage. Motorists in Kansas trapped in their cars on the freeway. That's nothing compared to the emotional damage Hodges can expect. Having to deal with a sick cat, frustrating new hours at work, and a confusing breakup all in the past 6 months.
You know, we're getting reports that he recently loaned $600 to a friend who has no intention of paying him back and slammed his finger in a car door last month. Does the National Weather Service have any advice for Kevin today?
Not much he can do. The sky is really vulnerable right now. Authorities are recommending that he just stay indoors and think about his mistakes.
That sounds like good advice. You know, he looks like a real sad piece of shit. Stay warm out there, Jordan.
This is the Onion News Network. Free Talk Live.
Welcome to another live Saturday episode of Free Talk Live.
We'll do it live!
As we do all 7 days a week, we do that here. You can join us on the number 603-283-6160. You can talk about whatever's on your mind. Coming up, we got to talk about pandemic fatigue. Captain will be telling us about what that is. And with you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
Beakless Mountaineer.
And the Reverend Captain Kickass.
I can tell you, I was fatigued by all of the nonsense within the first week. Yeah. Right away, basically.
Yeah, it doesn't, that's not what they mean by this particular term. They don't mean that you're sick of all the crap. Although,
that's not what they mean.
It's sort of related.
So where I was after the 14 days to flatten the curve.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
We did go pretty quickly, though, from 14 days to flatten the curve to 3 jabs or no job.
Oh, did I say days?
Yeah.
Speaking of the jabs or no job thing, that's what I wanted to start with here tonight. The Supreme Court, according to the various different news media, this one AP, has now rejected an emergency appeal from healthcare workers in the state of Maine to block a vaccine mandate that went into effect on Friday. So you guys might have heard that healthcare workers in Maine were told by the government, so it was a government mandate that said, if you work in healthcare, you have to have the vaccine. Doesn't matter what your corporation or your boss or whatever, it doesn't matter what they say. You have to have the vaccine in the state of Maine. And some of these folks, they went to court. They said, well, it's our body. We should be able to do what we want. In fact, we have a religious objection to this, a religious exemption to this. But the state of Maine does not acknowledge religious exemptions, and so now that came before the Supreme Court. And guess what happened?
I'm going to guess authoritarianism.
Yes, the Supreme Court has rejected the emergency appeal from the healthcare workers. They are saying, sorry, if you don't have, even if you have a religion, if you have an exemption, it does not apply in the state of Maine because, well, the government said so. And this is a pandemic.
You mean the government chose not to willingly limit its own power?
And it also
shocking.
Yeah, and also ignore, that First Amendment that does say that there's the freedom of religion here in the United States. I mean, it's pretty clear.
No,
they don't review it if you like.
Well, when I said freedom of religion, I meant, whatever I decide on a moment-by-moment basis, that means.
Right. No, it means apparently that you can still believe whatever religion you want to. You just can't exercise your beliefs in any meaningful sense. So the conservative justices on the panel three of them noted their dissents. The state is not offering a religious exemption to hospital and nursing home workers who risk losing their jobs if they're not vaccinated. So far, only New York and Rhode Island also have vaccine mandates that also lack religious exemptions for healthcare workers. And both are the subject of court fights. On Friday, an appeals court panel upheld New York State's vaccine mandate for healthcare workers, rejecting arguments by lawyers for the doctors, nurses, and other professionals that it did not adequately protect those with religious objections. And just as is typical in emergency appeals, the Supreme Court did not explain its action, because why should they have to? They're in charge.
They're wearing the robes. I mean, isn't that enough?
But Justice Gorsuch said in a dissent for himself and two fellow conservatives that he would have agreed to the healthcare workers' request. He wrote that, again, this is the guy who's in the minority. He said, where many other states have adopted religious exemptions, Maine has charted a different course. There, healthcare workers who have served on the front line of a pandemic for the last 18 months are now being fired and their practices shuttered, all for adhering to their constitutionally protected religious beliefs. Their plight is worthy of our attention. Two other justices joined him, Thomas and Alito, but it didn't matter because they're in the minority, so
Amazing what it takes to go from hero to villain, doesn't it? I mean, these were our frontline workers. These were heroes. Until they decided, no, that's too experimental. I'm not doing that. Or I have a religious exemption, for example, to injecting baby fetus parts into myself.
Yeah, how could these medically educated people break from what the government is saying?
Meducated?
Yeah. They went to college too, but apparently they learned the wrong things about, making their own decisions and looking at the evidence for themselves and, figuring that science is always questioning itself. No, they didn't learn the right things, which the right thing is apparently you just do what the CDC says and you don't question it.
And this is what people can't seem to get through their heads is education does not make you wise.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
In fact, it seems to do the opposite. We were talking about a poll here in the state of New Hampshire, over 1,300 voters, where the more, quote, educated you were, the more college that you'd been through, the less likely you were to see the country as being on the wrong track. So people who are going to graduate school were less likely than those who never graduated from high school.
I know plenty of college-educated idiots.
Mm-hmm. Coney Barrett, another justice there, noted in a short statement agreeing with the court's decision not to intervene, the justices were being asked to, quote, grant extraordinary relief in a case that is the first of its kind. And the legal team that sued to stop the mandate vowed to return to the Supreme Court to press for a full review on the merits. This case is far from over, said Matt Staver, the founder and chair of the Liberty Counsel. And, I can appreciate that these people think that they're going to find some sort of justice in this system, that this is the only solution that they can see. Like, there's tyranny happening everywhere. People are being told what their religion has to be. They are, ignoring their clear religious freedoms, their bodily freedoms, their own autonomy. All of these things are being ignored. People are basically being threatened with the loss of their livelihood unless they put an experimental medication in their body. And these government bureaucrats. These government bureaucrats are not going to save you on this. I'm sorry. A full review is not going to, make things any different. I have no belief that the Supreme Court, which historically has backed up the state, it's their job to back the government. Only on occasion will they push back. Oh, well, no, the government's gone too far on this. But, for every one step forward, there's 10 steps backwards from the Supreme Court. And I mean, like forward to liberty. Well, they don't care.
And let's assume hypothetically that they're right, that this does continue and that they even get, some semblance of justice. How long is that going to take? And how long are these people going to be either out of work or exposed to a potentially lethal or life-alteringly harmful experimental injection?
Good question. The deadline was yesterday for them to get the vaccine. So technically, they're out of a job starting now.
So, I mean, this is one of those situations where the process is the punishment. So even if you get, quote unquote justice later on down the road, by the time you get there, you've already been punished for your disagreeing with the status quo, with what the people in power have said that you need to believe.
The Democratic governor of Maine, Janet Mills, said she was gratified that the mandate was upheld, saying it's imperative for hospitals to, quote, take every precaution to protect their workers and patients against this deadly virus, deadly to the point of 0.02%. It's
so ridiculous. If you just step back and look at the grandioseness and what are we, 2 years into the thing now, and take a look at it and go, well, still like only 99% of the people are going to recover and be just fine.
Yeah, how about protecting them from this deadly injection? Which, if you look at the admittedly incomplete numbers of VAERS, more lethal than every vaccine since like 1990
combined.
Yeah.
And get ready
not each of them, all of them combined.
Get ready for this. There's propaganda coming out now saying things like, well, children have strokes too. As if to prepare the public for
what's going to happen to the kids, because now the FDA has approved vaccines for children 5 to 11.
Yep.
That's coming next. Quote, this rule protects us more from the governor of Maine. This rule protects healthcare workers, their patients, and the stability of our healthcare system in the face of this dangerous virus.
I'm sorry, a rule never protected anybody. Just writing words down on a piece of paper and calling it a rule has never protected anybody.
Just as vaccination defeated smallpox and vaccination defeated polio, vaccination is the way to defeat COVID-19. But it's not. I mean, even the mainstream media reports admit. Just the other day, there was another one that came out that said those who are vaccinated are just as likely to spread COVID-19 Delta variant to people within their homes as people who are unvaccinated.
I had a list.
Where's your doublethink, mister?
I had a list of like 22 different studies that all came to that conclusion.
We got more coming up here. You can join us. The number 603-283-6160. This isn't the only case that the Supreme Court has ruled in the favor of vaccine mandates and things like that. So there's no reason to think they're going to reverse their position at all. They're laying the groundwork for even more medical tyranny. This is Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of governments around the world killing innocent people? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin is money that cannot be inflated or controlled by any state. By continuing to use their money, you're perpetuating the killing. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available to you now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. It's Bitcoin.com. Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after Pork Fest, but Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. Forkfest.party. The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, you're invited if you want to join us here on the radio. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Also, Free Talk Live brought to you by Bitcoin.com. It is time, if you have not yet, learn the basics about Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, cryptocurrency in general. You ought to get on over to Bitcoin.com. Click Get Started at the top of the page, and there will be video content for you to watch. You can watch, if you're in a hurry, just one of them. Just watch the first one, get you the basic concepts down. It is not complex to understand the basics, but you can dig into the details if you want to. This is a topic that you can just dig and dig and dig. And there are more than one video there in case you have more time and you find the inclination. But get on over there to Bitcoin.com. This is a technology that is going to be with us for a very, very long time, I suspect. Whether or not Bitcoin itself ends up on the top of the heap as it currently is, that remains to be seen. It's currently there and it's ensconced pretty good, but many kings of many hills.
Pro tip to
dethroned
to the novices who hear the word cryptocurrency or Bitcoin Cash and all the others, blockchain, stuff like that. First of all, please educate yourself on what is a currency. Because once you understand what currency is, it makes understanding cryptocurrency a whole lot easier.
Yeah, and one of the things that's important to be able to tell the difference. So, like, I think it was like a week ago, you guys were talking about like JPM coin or something like that.
The JP Morgan internal coin.
Well, and it's important to realize that cryptocurrency is basically two elements. So there's the blockchain, which is basically just a record. Like a particular way of record keeping, but there's the fact that it's distributed, with a cryptographic signature. And while you can do blockchain through this centralized bank situation, you can't really do a distributed network that way. And that's really where the strength of cryptocurrencies lies. So like there's a lot of conflation of like digital currency is the same as cryptocurrency,
Not
is
the
the same
same,
as
no.
Bitcoin, is the
No.
same as blockchain. And it's like, well, these are related. Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency uses blockchain and is digital.
Yeah, they're related in the same way like an inbred cousin would be related to you. I mean, they're not in any way in this shape or form the same thing. Let's go to your phone calls and thoughts. You can bring up what you want. He's Joseph in New Hampshire, listening to WEMJ there in the Lakes region. Go ahead, Joseph.
Hey, how are you guys doing today?
Hey, good. What's on your mind tonight?
A little bit of a story I came across on Facebook. There's a man, he started a YouTube channel by the name of Robert Bodell. He is a 72-year-old war veteran, and I guess him and a buddy were in a like residential type neighborhood, and their vehicle ran out of gas. He was saying that his friend was the one driving, so his friend took a gas can, walked to the gas station, and had the keys with him, so there wasn't even keys with the car, and he was just standing there watching the car, and the state troopers come up and started asking him all kinds of questions and stuff, and you know, so he told them, you know, he's like, well, my buddy is on his way to go get some gas, and then we're out of here, you know, there's no keys in the vehicle, and I'm just a passenger, you know, and I think he's got like he was saying he's got like 2 or 3 different types of cancer. He's got like colon cancer and skin cancer and something else. And so anyway, when he stopped answering questions for the troopers, he said that the trooper beat him. He has a YouTube video where it shows the aftermath of what happened, or shows the aftermath of his face and what it looks like. He has a bruise going all the way around his eye and going about 6 inches down his cheek. And he was saying he was beaten unconscious, tased, and then sent to the county jail. He's saying they laughed at him because he couldn't make it to the bathroom. And he's like, you know, you don't understand what it's like when you have colon cancer. You really can't help it, you know. And then after it was all done and said, because he stopped answering questions, he was charged with assault on a police officer and is looking at upwards to 10 years in prison.
Jeez. Wow.
That's
all
horrible.
because he was on the side of a road on a broke-down car just waiting for his buddy to come back, and the cops decided to F with him, basically.
Yeah, that's the alleged story that he tells. I thought you guys would like to know that. You know, I thought, you know, maybe if you guys wanted to take a look later on at his channel and see what he has to say, you know. I think he's sincere. We've talked to him over panels, and you know, he acts like he doesn't really necessarily know what's going on when it comes to the court proceedings. And I think at one point he didn't want to fight it. He was at the point where he was like, you know, they're going to come and get me, and when they do, I'm not going to go. And he pretty much, you know, I'm not going to get into too much detail about that over the radio. But,
apparently, there's this guy, Robert Bodell, has posted to a Vimeo channel a week ago saying that he is going to commit suicide by cop. Have you heard about this?
That's what the second video I was talking about. We have since then talked to him, and we convinced him, you know, we're like, hey, dude, you need to fight this. You know, he doesn't even have a lawyer. They haven't even gotten him a lawyer, and he has, I think, pre-trial coming up. And so a few friends were talking to him in a panel, and we're like, you know, this guy said he'll take you to court. You know, we'll get you people on this. We'll get the story out.
So you
there.
talked him out of killing himself with the police, is what you're saying?
Yeah, he had that video, but he has a different video where it shows what his face looked like and stuff at the end. And he was still looking at 10 years in prison at the end of it.
Thanks for sharing that story tonight, Joseph. Unfortunately, there's just so many stories like it where police are abusing people. And this guy's in his 70s, by the way, just to be clear. He's elderly, and these, these cops weren't in their 70s, right? They're probably 30s, 20s, 40s at the oldest if they're on the streets, right? Beat up this old man and then charged him with disorderly conduct and whatever else. Attack on a police officer.
Protect and serve the crap out of them.
Well, and it's tough because, I mean, I can certainly empathize with the idea of like, well, if something happens, what am I going to get justice in a court against a cop? I mean, they
almost never.
They literally get away with murder.
Yes.
That tends to be what starts riots, but it happens all the time. They can murder people and not even get a slap on the wrist for it.
Qualified immunity.
I was following my training.
Yeah, it's a shocking story. I mean, just looking here at what he says in this video, again, suicide by Alaska State Trooper is the name of the video, Robert Bodell. I'll put a link to it on our social media channel over at social.freetalklive.com. You can take a look at this when you get a chance. It's sad and sick and all too common. The number here, 603-283-6160. You can join us. Bring up whatever's on your mind here. This is Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odysee, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off. Now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odysee started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odysee. You can watch live or anytime on our Odysee channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odysee today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks with the Week in Review. President Biden is spending the weekend at the G20 summit in Italy and then heading on to Glasgow for the COP26 climate change talks. He had hoped to enjoy legislative success on Capitol Hill before his departure, but once again that proved elusive, with the president's infrastructure, climate change and broader spending proposals still waiting to be put to a vote. The president on Thursday claimed he's finally forged unity among his fellow Democrats.
I'm pleased to announce that after months of tough and thoughtful negotiations, I know we have a historic economic framework. It's a framework that will create millions of jobs, grow the economy, invest in our nation and our people.
But there are still questions about the final shape of any legislation that will make its way to the president's desk. The Queen spent the week resting, her official engagements cancelled amid concerns over her health. Britain's 95-year-old monarch has now been advised by doctors to take another 2 weeks off. She will not be appearing in person at the COP26 summit, but will send a video message instead. The British government unveiled its autumn budget and confirmed it will lift a COVID-19 freeze on public sector wages. FSN's Laura Macon-Isherwood covered that story from our London bureau.
Rishi Sunak announced a raft of spending commitments that he says falls in line with the government's wider pledge to level up in the UK. Billions set aside for affordable homes, cash for a network of family hubs around the country, and a lift to the minimum wage rate. The pledges came thick and fast. And there were boosts for businesses too, a 50% business rates discount for companies in the retail, hospitality and leisure sectors for 1 year, and an air passenger duty cut on domestic flights from April 2023.
There was a military coup in Sudan this week. The World Bank suspended aid after the civilian government was overthrown. The chairman of the Joint Joint Chiefs of Staff confirmed America was deeply concerned about China's test of a nuclear-capable hypersonic weapon. He compared it to the Sputnik moment in the 1950s when the Soviet Union launched the world's first satellite into orbit. And Mort Saul, who pioneered political stand-up in the US, died at the age of 94.
I'm going to work, and there's a guy standing out there selling papers. He says, read all about it. Richard Nixon is going to Russia. Now, that's the first thaw in the Cold War. And it came right out of left field, boy, really wild. And people, were running up and buying these newspapers like crazy. A couple of people came up and said, to stay? I said, no.
In the 50s, he inspired Lenny Bruce, George Carlin, Richard Pryor, Harry Shearer, and many others with an unapologetic skewering of America's political class, and he broke new ground when he first did it in the comedy clubs of San Francisco. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, and you can bring up whatever you want. The number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Live Saturday show. Joining you in the studio tonight, you've got Ian
Peakless Mountaineer
and Peter Griffin.
We're going to go on here with your phone calls and thoughts. Plus, Freedom's Phoenix is a liberty-oriented news aggregation site. If you want the newest and freshest stories and perspectives on current events from those who value liberty, then freedomsphoenix.com has them. And they have a daily dispatch, which is a great way to stay up to date on science, technology, historical findings, liberty news, government overspending, and the rise of the police state. Freedoms with an S, Phoenix.com. That's freedomsphoenix.com. We're going to go back to your calls and thoughts. And then coming up, pandemic fatigue. What is it? And how do you deal with it? Apparently, this is what we're going to look at here in just a little bit. But, of course, your calls come first. So let's talk to Jerome. He's in South Carolina, listening in Charleston to WTMA. Go ahead, Jerome.
Yo. Hey, I just want to say I just saw Alec Baldwin, the P-Brain actor.
Okay, take a shot.
TV. Yeah. He's not only a murderer, he's a pervert, too. Because he's married, so-called married to a woman like 30 years younger than him, the same age with his daughter. So that makes him a pervert too. Yeah.
I don't know, man.
He's a murderer and a pervert.
Seems like it makes him a man. I mean, historically, males have been attracted to younger women. I mean, that's nothing new.
Yeah, right. Especially when you got the money to afford them, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you like them older, whatever floats your boat.
Hey, would a woman that young be looking at a gray-haired old 60-something fool like that? They don't look at me like that. That's a damn
the truth comes out. He's not a pervert. Jealous. You're just jealous.
Yeah.
Hey, I don't have women want to jump on my junk. All right. What do you mean I'm jealous?
If you had that kind of money, you would though.
That's a fact.
I'm jealous of a murderer and a pervert. Huh?
Well,
that makes no sense.
A millionaire.
You're jealous of this facet of his life. Maybe not so much the others.
All right, now look, I'm not here to defend Alec Baldwin. The guy is definitely a toxic individual, Jerome.
Murderer and a pervert.
But I do have to ask, why do you think he's a murderer?
Because he was on TV today, with his wife, quote unquote, trying to run interference for him. Hey, I don't want to hear any excuses about, oh, she was my friend. No, that ain't good enough. The buck stops with him. He ran that whole, as we would say, shooting match. You know what? He ran that whole thing, all right?
But wait. I asked specifically why you think he's a murderer. I mean, generally, as far as murder charges are concerned, you either have to do it premeditated or sort of in the moment, right? Like, so the classic example of an in-the-moment murder would be, you walk in on, somebody walks in on their wife cheating on them, and then in a fit of rage, they commit the act
jilted lover
of homicide. They didn't plan to do it, but they did it, and it's murder. Whereas a premeditated is they plotted and they intended to go and do a thing. So, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an expert on the law. Is there like a third class of murder that I'm leaving out here?
On the radio, right?
Huh?
You just play one on the radio, right?
No.
Hey, look here. You know what? Him trying to bow out of this like, I'm not an expert. That's just like when that lawyer got up in court in Minnesota and said, don't believe what you saw after that cop murdered George Floyd. Don't believe what you saw. Oh, there's reasonable doubt.
Well, you haven't answered the question, Jerome. What makes you think that he murdered somebody?
Because he shot a loaded gun at an innocent person.
He presumably didn't know. If he did know, then yes. You do have, in that case, likely a premeditated murder, in which case, you're right about that. But at this point, there's no evidence that he was aware. He's just a dumb actor, and somebody handed him a gun. He has no knowledge and was never trained, and this is not excusing what he did, mind you. He should have the knowledge if he's going to be handling a gun to check it and make sure that it is safe.
And I really want to, so I don't watch celebrity gossip, even of the murder or did not murder variety. Now,
but you've heard about this story, right?
It crossed my path. Yeah. I just don't care. I mean, they're celebrities. They're first class citizens, kind of like cops and lawyers. But
which is why they haven't put him in handcuffs yet.
Exactly. But I was wondering. Now, did he have motive for this? Like, was this like someone who was getting in on his wife or something?
I'm like you. I have not done any significant research on this
Jerome,
story.
You've been following this. Like, did he have motive to kill this person?
I don't know what the hell drove him to do this.
So you just think somebody pointing a gun at somebody
stops with him. The buck stops with him.
Yeah, I think. Look,
I'm not. He ran the whole thing.
And there is the class of where you accidentally kill someone, which is
like manslaughter.
Yeah.
Man's laughter if you use the apostrophe appropriately.
Let me ask you this. How in the hell, for years, he plays like he's so damn smart and so sharp, and I'm such a good actor, and I'm making money off of doing Trump, and now he's dumb as a damn fence post. How the hell you pull that off?
It's called acting for a reason.
I don't know nothing. I don't know. She was a friend of mine. I'm not an expert. Oh, yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, sure.
Look, it is, I think, his responsibility to know how to handle a firearm, even though he's just an actor, and, there's people for that or whatever. Those are what some of the excuses that Aria was making earlier this week when we discussed this issue. As far as I'm concerned, if there's a gun in your hand, it is your responsibility to understand how that gun works and take the responsibility of being safe with it, which is, again, the number one rule of firearms is you never point a gun at something you don't intend to destroy. Double-obviously, when you're in a movie, you have to point guns at people because that's part of the whole process. But at the very least, you ought to double check, and triple check to make sure that, that gun is not loaded, with something that is deadly.
May I ask you this?
Yes, sir.
May I ask you this?
Yeah.
Is this going to be another example of Donald John Trump saying, well, when you're a celebrity, they let you get away with it? So is that going to be another?
It may very well be.
It's certainly possible that
not
that's
against,
how it turns out.
That makes me feel so much damn better.
Look, I'm not.
Really
maybe you shouldn't feel good about the fact that celebrities get away with way more than ordinary people, in the same way that politicians and cops do.
And I think that's something we can agree with you about, Jerome. It's just that whether they're going to charge him with murder or not, I don't think is very likely. Because it doesn't.
You know what I like about this story? Is that this a-hole is going to get away with this because he looks a certain way and he makes a certain amount of money. But a black man like me, I go walking down the street and I see a bunch of white people, and they're ready to cross the street to get the hell away from me, and I am, pose no threat to them.
That's so sad. I'm sorry that happens, Jerome. It's ridiculous.
So damn good.
Yeah, that is. I agree with you, man. That's ridiculous and sad. The only thing I'm quibbling with you about is whether or not this was legally an act of murder. That's all. Thanks for the call tonight, man. I appreciate it.
I'd also like to point out that regardless of skin color, I mean, the fact that he's rich and extremely famous is what played the biggest part about this. So, I mean, if this was Samuel L. Jackson or Wesley Snipes, you'd be in the same situation.
Odds are good. Let's go to Rob in Vermont. You're on Free Talk Live. Rob, go ahead.
Hi, guys. How you doing tonight?
What's on your mind tonight, Rob?
Great. So I wanted to go back and talk with the previous caller that called in from New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, you don't really see those stories like on a regular newscast or anything.
Weird.
I mean, even the kind of things that have happened to Ian that you and I, we've talked about on this show many, many times. Like, Peter Heed and the judge that played, grab ass up at the White Mountains, and then the judge in Nashua.
There's so much corruption out there, and the mainstream media is not really interested in reporting on it because, well, their job is to back the government.
Exactly. And, I'm just saying, where the hell is the outrage?
Where's the outrage? Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, obviously there are people who are upset, and thank you for the call, Rob. I appreciate it. And that's why you did have some large protests last year with, Black Lives Matter. There was a lot of people who were frustrated with the police. Unfortunately, none of the proposals that were made were in any way going to change things, with the exception of abolishing them. And, of course, no city councilor is ever going to propose that because, again, they're on the side of the police. So we're kind of stuck. More coming up.
Excuse me, is this where I get a license to start a new business?
I wouldn't be hasty. You have to get a license to go out of business, too,
Oh, well, look, I've invented this little anti-gravity machine, see?
Is that why you're walking 2 inches above the floor?
Oh, yes, it's very comfortable. It saves on shoe leather.
Yeah, well, you have to fill out these forms and report to the Human Services Department of Manpower Orientation and register with the Fair Employment Practice Commission, the Wage and Hour Division of the Employment Standards Administration, the State Sales and Income Tax Division, the Internal Revenue Service, and the Social Security Administration of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, and, of course, OSHA.
OSHA? I thought that was a little town in Wisconsin.
You'll find out. Say, floating around like that could be dangerous. Have you checked with the Consumer Product Safety Commission?
Well, not yet.
Come to think of it, you actually are flying, aren't you? Look, you need to go over to the Federal Aviation Administration and the Transportation...
It's very hard to get anything done these days if you're in business, but free enterprise built this country. Think what could happen if we don't keep it free. A public service of this station and the Center for the Defense of Free Enterprise, Bellevue, Washington.
We just can't have people floating about unregulated,
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically 2 types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And here in the studio with you tonight, it's Ian,
the Eagles Mountaineer,
and the Reverend Captain Kickass.
Don't forget, you can join us online. Head over to freetalklive.com. You can follow us on our social media site at social.freetalklive.com. And you will automatically follow Free Talk Live and some of our hosts there as sort of a default when you join the site. If you want to unfollow us, you can do that. We won't be offended. But the thing about our social media site is it's not run by big tech. It's run by us. And so you've got more freedom to speak on social.freetalklive.com. Head over there and check that out when you get a chance. That's social.freetalklive.com. Just a moment ago, we had Robert in Vermont call in, and I felt like what he said deserved a little bit more commentary because it was kind of coming toward the end of the segment, and frustrated by the fact the media doesn't cover police corruption, judges being corrupt. I mean, every now and then you will see a story in the mainstream media. Like, for instance, I remember there was a police chief here in the Keene area a couple of years ago that got arrested and charged and convicted for raping children. So every now and then there will be one story that's big enough to come out and kind of make a splash. But for the most part, I do agree with Robert that the media kind of covers for the cops. They don't really do much of a good job at really, rooting out all of the corruption that exists, or even a fraction of the corruption that exists. It's just for whatever reason, they don't feel like that's their job.
Yeah.
They don't do that. And so what do you do about that? I mean, people are frustrated. There were protests last year, and a lot of frustration went out into the streets about police corruption and police violence and murders by police and things like that. And, when I saw those things happening, I thought, okay, this is good. I'm glad to see people are out there expressing themselves about this. And what did they get back, from politics? Well, of course, pandering.
Yes.
The politicians, oh, yeah, we see your concerns.
We will introduce a bill called the Defunding of Police Bill, in which we will do nothing.
No, we will do something. We will give them more funding.
Or they'll, there have been some minor tweaks that have sort of been proposed, like, oh, the police shouldn't have to deal with certain types of calls. We need to have a mental health professional show up instead of a cop. And, that's not a terrible idea on its own.
It's certainly better than what currently exists.
But whether those ever really got any kind of traction, I don't know. That's one of the things where, the news media doesn't really, follow these stories.
I kind of wish I wish someone had gone, maybe we shouldn't have given them all of this military equipment.
It
seems to make them more militarized.
Yeah, that is definitely a good point. There was a bill in the State House here in New Hampshire to end the militarization of the police, to defund them in that way. Unfortunately, I don't think it made it out of the committee.
Maybe you should require police officers to have a huge amount of de-escalation training, empathy training, and probably a longer period of time for training than something like, say, a cosmetologist or a barber, something like that, because currently they're about the same duration of training.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think any of those things will really make a huge difference. I mean, they're not a bad idea, but because you've got essentially a monopoly on violence, it's inevitably going to attract more psychopaths than would otherwise be attracted to.
They don't have an incentive to do the right thing for human beings in their particular employment.
Yeah, and the reason for that is because the system has no incentive to behave in the right way.
Right.
Because you have to fund them. Because no matter how bad they are, no matter how many heads they bash against the pavement, no matter how many wrongful arrests that they conduct, no matter how corrupt these people are, if you don't pay for them, they will come after you.
Yep.
And they will take your property from you by force if necessary. If you try to defend your property, what you think is your property, they will kill you.
Yep.
And they will not be held responsible for that either.
In the rare instance when somebody in like law enforcement, for example, wrongs a citizen, and it goes to court.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is a rare situation, and the court rules in favor of the citizen who had their rights violated.
Yeah.
Right? The court rules in favor and awards them some degree of money.
Well, in George Floyd's case, he's dead, so he doesn't get any money.
Of course.
In that case.
But let's just say that this is how it plays out. Now, where does that money come from? Does it come from the police who wronged this person? No. They take it from the taxpayers.
That's right.
So no matter who wins, the taxpayer loses.
That's right.
Certainly not from the individual that did the wrong. Not even from the department.
Right.
Correct.
And I'd like to point out that this is one of the things that the left actually has right. The defund the police, and that's why they're trying to distract them from it. Like, there are a couple of things that the left has really right, and one of them is their opposition to corporate control, and another one is the opposition to police power. And I think this is...
But that's not like all the left. It's only some of the left. There's plenty of the left that loves themselves a cop.
Well, that's true.
Yeah. If that's what the left has right, what does the right have left?
And I think that these are some of the things that a lot of the wokeness stuff is really trying to distract them from. Because here we have something that like, oh, well, see, we can even have, gay pride cop cars and things like that. And like, really, diversity and intersectionality and all of that stuff as a distraction from where they're actually right on things.
Mm. Yeah, like it would be somehow better if the cop that's choking you out cares about gay people,
right?
Or he's got pink on for breast cancer. Let's go to Bob. He's in West Virginia. You're on Free Talk Live. Hello, Bob.
Hey there. I couldn't help but to hear the gentleman that was on before, and he was referring to Alec Baldwin, and he said he was a murderer. Well, I was listening to a talk on the radio with attorneys. Mm-hmm. They were referring to Arizona law, which is where this all occurred, I believe.
I thought it was New Mexico, but I am not positive.
New Mexico, yeah. I'm sorry. I was touring around town in my Chevrolet.
Okay.
I hate to say I mix those two up frequently.
Yeah, it's some say tomato and some say tomato. I understand. Yeah. So what they were saying was that he was grossly negligent and showed disregard in the handling of a firearm. For human right of life. Therefore, it is in that state considered third-degree murder.
Oh, third degree.
Now,
okay.
I would Google it. Yeah, I would Google it if, to get the exact parlance that they used, which would be in your Black's Law Dictionary, which I don't have a copy of.
Okay.
But that would be something to look up.
Right, because I had asked out loud, is there another degree of murder I'm unaware of? And maybe some states have third degree, others don't. I don't know.
I think third degree murder and manslaughter might be, I don't know. I'm not familiar
it's
enough.
It's something that I'd have to research.
Yeah, just on a cursory view, it looks like they're the same thing. It's still an unintentional killing. Through
third degree murder is the same as manslaughter, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
It seemed on a cursory view, they're both at least unintentional killings.
Gotcha. Bob, anything else you want to share tonight?
No, but I like the way you guys speak of the police when they're acting as rascaleros, as my friend from Texas would call them.
All too frequently.
And they deserve a spanking on occasion. I'm sorry.
Oh, they act rascaleros all too frequently.
Yeah, well, it's because they can get away with it and they know it. And a lot of the people that become cops, that's one of the reasons they become cops. In fact, remember there was a story out of Manchester, New Hampshire this year?
Yeah,
where
we covered it.
Yeah, they actually advertised publicly when they were trying to hire cops, they advertised qualified immunity as a job benefit, as a perk.
In the list, like retirement plan, 401k, qualified immunity.
Right. That's basically a signal saying, hey, if you want to get away with some stuff, if you want to be violent and get away with it and have no actual responsibility for your actions, come work for us. I mean, that's how it is.
On the other hand, you also have frivolous complaints made, and you've heard them, I'm sure. There's a lot of frivolous complaints made against them, which is why I believe that cop cams are very necessary when it comes to enforcing the law, since
well, here's one thing. If the cops didn't have as many damn laws to enforce, or if they only went
And
after
I'll
people
agree
who
with
are
you.
murderers or rapists or arsonists, then I think you'd have a lot fewer complaints against them, because they're frequently just going after people for speeding tickets, marijuana possession,
bureaucratic violations,
underage
You've got
drinking.
2 points there. There are too many laws. I'll agree with that.
Thanks, Bob.
But
I
on the
appreciate
other
your
hand-
call tonight, man. Thanks for appreciate hearing from you. The number here is 603-283-6160. Now, the police, by the way, have discretion. So even though there's a bunch of laws on the books, the cops,
supposedly,
if they were actual good people, they could just say, "Oh, this is a bad law. This is."
Well,
But
we only punish unauthorized crime anyway.
What's that?
We only punish unauthorized crime. They're authorized
That's
crime.
true. Yep, 603-283-6160. It's not murder when they do it. Then it's a legal taking of a life. There's more coming up here in moments. Hour number 2 coming up.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it! You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks with the Week in Review. President Biden is spending the weekend at the G20 summit in Italy and then heading on to Glasgow for the COP26 climate change talks. He had hoped to enjoy legislative success on Capitol Hill before his departure, but once again that proved elusive, with the president's infrastructure, climate change and broader spending proposals still waiting to be put to a vote. The president on Thursday claimed he's finally forged unity among his fellow Democrats.
I'm pleased to announce that after months of tough and thoughtful negotiations, I know we have a historic economic framework. It's a framework that will create millions of jobs, grow the economy, invest in our nation and our people.
But there are still questions about the final shape of any legislation that will make its way to the president's desk. The Queen spent the week resting, her official engagements cancelled amid concerns over her health. Britain's 95-year-old monarch has now been advised by doctors to take another 2 weeks off. She will not be appearing in person at the COP26 summit, but will send a video message instead. The British government unveiled its autumn budget and confirmed it will lift a COVID-19 freeze on public sector wages. FSN's Laura Macon-Isherwood covered that story from our London bureau.
Rishi Sunak announced a raft of spending commitments that he says falls in line with the government's wider pledge to level up in the UK. Billions set aside for affordable homes, cash for a network of family hubs around the country, and a lift to the minimum wage rate. The pledges came thick and fast. And there were boosts for businesses too. A 50% business rates discount for companies in the retail, hospitality and leisure sectors for 1 year, and an air passenger duty cut on domestic flights from April 2023.
There was a military coup in Sudan this week. The World Bank suspended aid after the civilian government was overthrown. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff confirmed America was deeply concerned about China's test of a nuclear-capable hypersonic weapon. He compared it to the Sputnik moment in the 1950s when the Soviet Union launched the world's first satellite into orbit. And Mort Saul, who pioneered political stand-up in the US, died at the age of 94.
I'm going to work, and there's a guy standing out there selling papers, and he says, "Read all about it. Richard Nixon is going to Russia." Now, that's the first thaw in the Cold War. And it came right out of left field, boy, really wild. And people, were running up and buying these newspapers like crazy. A couple of people came up and said, "To stay?" I said, "No."
In the 50s, he inspired Lenny Bruce, George Carlin, Richard Pryor, Harry Shearer, and many others with an unapologetic skewering of America's political class, and he broke new ground when he first did it in the comedy clubs of San Francisco. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. More now on Mort Saul. In the 1960s, he told The Voice of America why he thought political humor was so important.
Yeah, well, this society shows no signs of a utopia. There are a great many things that bear attacking. I think that the best thing anybody can do for this country is, this country really needs a critic. I was once talking to a girl who belonged to the Democratic Party in Massachusetts, and she was critical of one of the candidates, and she said to me, "He really isn't fit, in my view." I said, "What are you going to do when you're called upon to vote?" She said, "Well, I'm a good party girl. I'm going to vote for him." And it occurred to me that maybe the best thing she could do for her party was not to vote for him. Maybe the best thing you can do for your party is to criticize. The old term, His Majesty's loyal opposition. I think this country needs a critic in order to survive, as a matter of fact. It needs more than one, but so far it has one. You need somebody on the attack who audits what we do.
US investors will be turning their attention this week to the health of the US labour market. It comes after data released last week showed the US economy grew sluggishly last quarter. From FSN's business desk in New York with the preview, Will Denzelo.
The US economy added 194,000 jobs in September, well short of the 500,000 some analysts had expected. On Friday, October's jobs report is due out, and investors will be hoping for signs of strength in the US labour market. Wall Street will be looking for positive news this week following some recent tepid pieces of economic data. Consumer spending data out Friday ticked up 0.6%, which was largely in line with predictions, but inflation was seen as a major contributing factor. William Denzelo, New York.
In the coming week, our focus will be intensely on COP26, the climate change summit in Glasgow. The FSN team is there. You'll hear their reports here and follow them on Twitter at Feature Story. And that's the Week in Review from Feature Story News. Simon Marks reporting.
For over 8 years, Gary Lightman has been the chief executive officer and guiding force behind tech company MediaMerge Incorporated. Lightman spoke to reporters this week about working his way up from his humble beginnings as a son of the previous CEO.
If you would have told me 10 years ago that I would someday be the CEO of my dad's company, I would have said, absolutely not. I mean, it feels like just yesterday that I started off as a senior executive at this company, and now I'm in charge of the place.
Lightman told reporters that he credits his continued success in business to a number of crucial moments in his career, including getting hired by his father's retirement, and a few lucky breaks in between.
I'm not going to lie to you, it was a lot of work. I was here for nearly 8 hours every day. Someone clearly saw my efforts and took notice. A lot of young people ask for my advice, and I always say the same thing. Work hard, and it will lead to bigger and better things. That's what I tell my kids.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
You can join us. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Coming up, we still have to get into this pandemic fatigue story, Captain, that you brought in here tonight. And that is the intention. But, of course, our first intention is to take your phone calls and your thoughts about whatever you want. With you tonight, by the way, it is Ian,
Beakless Mountaineer,
and the Captain.
And we will go back to the phones and the fun. Also, want to invite you over to freetalklive.com, where we have a Matrix chat server on which you can interact with other Free Talk Live listeners, as well as people who don't really listen at all. They're just there to have, to troll, essentially. So get on over there to chat.freetalklive.com and enjoy the fun. You can create channels.
Always something going on in there.
There's always something ridiculous happening, and sometimes they're informative. You never know really what you're going to get. Inkblot just posted a photo from, what was this, like Walmart? Publix, which is a major grocer in the Southeast. No cream cheese at Publix. Sold out. Shelves are barren.
Wow.
Yeah, so...
I have noticed recently, even in little Keene, New Hampshire, that there have been, chunks of things sort of sold out.
Have you been seeing
as
that?
I meander through the grocery store, yeah.
Yeah, I see a little bit here and there, but it hasn't been, alarming.
No, but, just seeing it at all
unusual.
Is unusual for this particular area.
Yeah, he's been actually following that a lot. He lives in Florida, and he'll take pictures of his experience of going to grocery stores and Costco and Walmarts and showing what's not there.
Yeah,
it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I do wonder as far as, I definitely expect continual price increases, but I wonder if this is basically how that's manifesting now, is that cream cheese was going to go from $3 to $5, but we don't think anyone's going to pay $5 given how much people are working, so we're just going to not make cream cheese.
Yeah, but they wouldn't, if that
we'll
was...
make something else.
If that were true, they would put something else in the shelf. And these are empty shelves. I think what you're dealing with...
to keep the price down on something else, they might be taking those resources elsewhere.
What you're dealing with here is the supply chain issues, where there's a ton of cargo ships out in the ocean. And in fact, Captain, I know you had a story about that tonight, where Biden apparently wants to fine the cargo ships for sitting out in the ocean, as though that's going to somehow make things better.
It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Let's go to your calls and thoughts first. Nick is on the line in North Carolina. He's a podcast listener. Go ahead, Nick.
Hey, fellas. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
What's on your mind tonight?
Hey, it's good to talk to you. I've been listening for about a year, and this is my first call.
Okay, welcome.
But hey, thank you, Ian. I want to talk about something I heard from you and Bonnie last night. You were speaking about, everybody pretty much deserves a place in this country.
I don't think I said anything like that. I don't think anybody deserves anything.
Okay, well, let me rephrase.
But go ahead. Because to deserve something would suggest that somebody owes you something and they have to provide it to you, and I don't think that's true at all. I don't think anyone should be forced to do anything against their will. But should people have an opportunity?
I'm not talking about force, but okay.
Sure.
So the free staters, and we're talking about conservatives and the leftists, and conservatives in Texas and the leftists in Massachusetts, and
I think I know what you're talking about. Okay, I think you're right. Let me clarify what I said. Just to clarify, we were talking about secession, we were talking about independence, and I said, shouldn't people, don't people deserve to have a place they can call their own? That didn't mean you're owed a piece of land or something. That
right.
just meant.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're forced.
Gotcha.
Okay. So I just want to, a thought popped in my head. Like, when does that end? When, so we have 50 states right now, maybe 52 with Puerto Rico and what have you. But when does that end? When does that 51st, 52nd, 53rd, person say, I deserve, I need this place to stay.
Yeah, we weren't talking about individuals. We were talking about types of people. So
Correct.
The idea being, shouldn't libertarians have a place of their own where we can have a society that we want to have and not have to fight constantly with conservatives or liberals over this? And shouldn't the conservatives have a place of their own where they don't have to constantly be in battle with these liberals and fight? And the same thing's true for the liberals. Shouldn't they have a place of their own? I think that they should.
Yeah, like-minded people should be able.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't disagree with that statement at all.
Yeah.
But when do other people say, well, the libertarians have this place, I need this other place. Maybe I should have a part of the libertarian culture. Maybe
Okay, if you follow that train of thought to its logical conclusion, you would actually arrive at anarchy. Because it's just reducing all of that down to the individual level, right?
Taking political jurisdictions and reducing and shrinking and making more of them.
So if we break up into... thereby, no one should have a particular area or landmass for themselves as a group then. Right?
People should have whatever they want.
They should have it voluntarily. You should be a part of whatever group you want to be, and not a part of a group that you're forced to be.
Yeah, and if you want to be a group of one, which is to say, living by yourself in the middle of the woods and left alone by people, you should be left alone. I mean, what's wrong with that?
And I would love that. If the wife and the family and whoever would just let that happen, that'd be great.
Well, I also think that it's totally possible for this group of one to exist in a major metropolitan area.
No, it's not.
I believe
because there's
it is.
always these people that want to force their way on you in a metropolitan area. There's a bunch of control freaks around.
People won't let you cross the street without letting the white.
Once the idea of authority, gets sort of stricken from humanity, then it would totally be possible.
Oh, well, that's a total fantasy land, Captain.
Hey, man, I'm into sci-fi.
Hold on. No, I mean, I don't think that's a fantasy at all. I mean, we are already on the cusp of breaking up as a country.
Sure.
Okay, so let's follow that to a conclusion of, so now there's 50 territories. Okay, well, what about Northern California wants to secede from the rest of California?
Let them go.
Let them go. Okay, well, this county wants to secede from this county. Or, Washington wants to secede the West from the East because they can't get
How do you
along.
get from there to the ending of the idea of political authority?
Well, I mean, that's the natural conclusion.
But it's not.
The natural conclusion is that whoever wants to secede from whoever else.
But it's not
can.
natural, because it seems more natural to me, and I don't want this to be the case, but by observation, the nature of man seems to be mostly to obey and to be told what to do and to search for a powerful man to tell them what to do. Look around you, man. Look at what happened in the last 18, 19 months or however long it's been since COVID. Look at all these sheep who just want a leader. They want a strong man to give them a vaccine and tell them where to go.
So let's just follow the idea of the libertarians have a place of their own.
Okay.
You think we can't have a city?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We absolutely can have a city.
Absolutely.
And once the libertarians have a
if
city,
the people have the
then
right
you are going
idea.
to have the situation where
I
you can
agree.
have an individual in the middle of a metropolitan area.
Yes, that would be
is
true
the
if you
same
could
level
actually have a
of
libertarian
autonomous.
city. Yes, if and when we actually have a libertarian city, which is possible, I'll give you that. But to turn the whole earth into that, we're never going to see it.
What it comes down to for me,
it's sooner than you think.
Not going to happen.
What it comes down to for me is that I don't care who you are. Every individual has different needs, wants, and preferences. Now, you can extrapolate that into any container that you like. You can extrapolate that into the medical field. You can extrapolate that into the political field. You can extrapolate that into the educational field, right? My needs, wants, and preferences are far different from anybody in this room, anybody listening to this thing right now. And there's no reason that shouldn't also apply to the levels of, I'm going to say, services that are currently monopolized by the organization called government. Right, these governance services, I'm going to have a different level of need, want, and desire for these services, and there's no reason that I could not be a country of one.
I agree.
Yeah, and everyone. Yeah, thank you. And everyone else that's in this particular libertarian city, I don't want to say not everyone else, but a slim majority may want to push you out because they feel that they have a larger claim to their feelings, their thoughts, their ideology.
It's not the feeling that matters. It's did you mix your labor with that piece of nature or trade for it?
Yeah, I dare say that people in a libertarian city would not act that way. Otherwise, it would not be a libertarian city.
Right.
And I hope we get to the chance of finding out what that would be like.
That'd be great.
But we're going to need more people to migrate here to New Hampshire and create that libertarian majority and make things uncomfortable for the statists, make them want to leave on their own volition. Thanks, Nick. There's more coming up here on Free Talk Live.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correia, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project early movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You can bring up anything you want here on the live Saturday show. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And here in the studio with you tonight, you got Ian.
Speakless Mountaineer.
And the Reverend Captain Kickass.
Last year, Free Talk Live told you about Intercoin, which can help any business or organization launch their own currency or raise money using their own token. And now Intercoin.org has launched worldwide. So if there's a token you want to launch or an app you want to build, you can go to Intercoin.org. Enter your email, and the team will get in touch to learn about your needs. Plus, you can also get the Intercoin Investor Token for yourself at intercoin.org. And coming up on Tuesday, now I'm not sure at what time on Tuesday, whether it's going to be Eastern or Pacific or Greenwich Mean Time or whatever, but there's going to be a big deal for Intercoin. They're very excited to announce that they're going to be listed on their first centralized cryptocurrency exchange. This one is called X Markets, spelled EXMARKETS. So if you go to the X Markets exchange and register for an account, the nice thing about this exchange, I couldn't believe it. Again, I'm not allowed to use cryptocurrency, but my understanding of this exchange, it is no KYC. Yeah, so if you've got an email, you can go and register for the X Markets exchange, and I will double check because you always have to be careful when you go to exchanges.
I'll look into it, but
you don't want to go to the wrong URL. So I'm going to make sure I'm going to give you the right URL here. It's exmarkets.com, and that will take you to X Markets, where you can trade not just Intercoin. Again, it's not available there yet, but if you look on the site, you'll see that it's coming. So check it out over at xmarkets, exmarkets.com, intercoin.org. And that's coming up Tuesday for that launch, supposedly. Unless something unexpected happens, it's supposed to happen Tuesday.
It's kind of a weird day. Tuesday?
I don't know. It's when everything launches, right? Like,
really?
New movies come out on the DVDs or whatever, they come out Tuesday.
Maybe
Music
that's
comes out on Tuesday. Yeah. I don't know. Or maybe it's just a coincidence.
Seems like an idle day of the week to me, but...
Yeah. All right, so you want to join us here? You can. The number is 603-283-6160. Earlier in the show, we were talking about the Supreme Court case, and there was just a little bit more I thought was worth pointing out here. The Supreme Court has denied a case for an emergency appeal. And why was it an emergency? Well, in the state of Maine, the governor, who is Democrat Governor Janet Mills, issued a mandate. Just without the legislature, she just said, and now all healthcare providers, you must require your employees to be vaccinated.
Can we just start referring to these as decrees?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was, a diktat.
Yes.
She issued one of these decrees, and that went into effect apparently on Friday. So yesterday was the deadline for all of the healthcare workers in the state of Maine to get this.
Okay.
Some of them sued, and the case was denied by an appeals court. And then the Supreme Court also refused to hear the case. So when the Supreme Court refuses to hear a case, that upholds the lower court's decision. So the appeals court ruling in this case against the healthcare workers and in favor of the state mandate stands.
Certainly lost appeal to me.
The High Court has previously turned away students at Indiana University and teachers in New York City who also objected to being vaccinated. Both the university and city allow people to seek religious exemptions. All of the justices have been vaccinated. Maine's requirement was put into place by the governor. A federal judge in Maine declined to stop the mandate, concluding the lawsuit was unlikely to succeed. The October 13th decision prompted a flurry of appeals that landed for a second time in the Supreme Court. The group that filed the lawsuit, entitled the Liberty Council, claimed to be representing more than 2,000 healthcare workers who don't want to be forced to be vaccinated. Now, if you got 2,000 healthcare workers, you have enough people to start your own hospital.
Yep.
You've got enough people to start several, doctors' offices with full staffs, right? So I think what needs to happen here, and maybe it will eventually, is the people who want to live free of these mandates need to move together. And this comes back to what we were just talking about a moment ago, where people of a like mindset need to make the effort to get up from where they are. I understand it's easy to stay where you are because, you were born there, your family's there, or whatever. Well, your career isn't there anymore, so that's not going to hold a lot of people back at this point. If there's something that's been holding you back, you really have to ask, how important is freedom to you?
I have heard of a couple of instances of folks, one of them today, and I didn't bring it in for show prep because I didn't think it was a big enough topic, but folks getting together and opening a clinic because they were, let go from their job because of the vaccine mandates. And so they're like, well, we'll go open our own clinic with blackjack and hookers or whatever, right? Bender from Futurama.
Yeah.
I recall.
Where is this happening?
I want to say Oklahoma or something. I'll look it up. Let's see if I can find it.
The problem you're going to run into in the state of Maine is the mandate applies to any healthcare provider within the state. So anybody who is breaking away and trying to do their own thing, the Maine goon squad's going to come after them. They're going to get raided. They're going to get arrested. They're going to be attacked. They're going to be violently, handcuffed and thrown in a cell if they try to open an unvaccinated medical clinic. So the solution is to get out of Maine, to get out of New York State, to get out of California, get out of these places where these mandates exist, King County, Washington, get out of the places where they're implementing these vaccine passports, and get to places that are more to your liking, that have people that are more like you. If you're conservative, get to Texas. If you're libertarian, get to New Hampshire. If you're a total statist liberal, California's waiting for you. And then, you'll be able to be around people that are more like you, and that is going to be a better situation for everybody. So dozens of healthcare workers in the state of Maine have quit their jobs, and in a hospital in Maine's second largest city has curtailed admissions already because of an acute shortage of nurses. So they're down so many nurses now that they are telling people they can't check into the hospital.
In a real pandemic, you don't fire healthcare workers.
No. So that's it. The enforcement of the mandate began on the same day the governor announced 80% of eligible Mainers were vaccinated. Most healthcare workers have complied. And, of course, the big hospital associations and other healthcare groups support the requirement. And that's it. There's your story. Toll-free number here, or the number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Of course, you can bring up anything that is on your mind. Captain, you have a story for us tonight about pandemic fatigue. And this isn't about people like us who are fatigued by statism, who are frustrated by the ongoing mandates, the crackdowns, the COVID madness that is happening here with the statism. This is something else.
Before we get to that, I wasn't able to find the place where the folks who have quit or been fired have decided to start a clinic of their own, but I was able to find, apparently there are several, let's call them job boards for people who don't want the vax, haven't got the vax, or have been displaced because of the vax. There's a chat group on Gab. There's NovaxJobsUSA.com.
This is showing job listings where you don't have to have a vaccination?
Correct.
That's
yes,
cool.
There's over 22 of them, apparently.
That's it?
Well, that's
for the whole country?
Well, I don't know if that's like the total, but 22 of them listed in this particular thing. So
cool.
Yeah, to know. Folks are getting together and doing something.
More coming up here. If you want to join us, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We'll talk about pandemic fatigue coming up.
If you want to bring more liberty into your community, there's something you should see. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, break through. It's true. It's truly something new. If you'd like to see real prosperity, start your own currency, boost the economy. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, its impact's hard to overstate. Results you can appreciate. If you're tired of relying on the state, want to make your own community great. Homelessness and hunger to eliminate. Let the wealth accumulate. Don't wait for the growth rate to accelerate. Go to intercoin.org and get the coins for yourself.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks with the Week in Review. President Biden is spending the weekend at the G20 summit in Italy and then heading on to Glasgow for the COP26 climate change talks. He had hoped to enjoy legislative success on Capitol Hill before his departure, but once again that proved elusive, with the president's infrastructure, climate change and broader spending proposals still waiting to be put to a vote. The president on Thursday claimed he's finally forged unity among his fellow Democrats.
I'm pleased to announce that after months of tough and thoughtful negotiations, I know we have a historic economic framework. It's a framework that will create millions of jobs, grow the economy, invest in our nation and our people.
But there are still questions about the final shape of any legislation that will make its way to the president's desk. The Queen spent the week resting, her official engagements cancelled amid concerns over her health. Britain's 95-year-old monarch has now been advised by doctors to take another 2 weeks off. She will not be appearing in person at the COP26 summit, but will send a video message instead. The British government unveiled its autumn budget and confirmed it will lift a COVID-19 freeze freeze on public sector wages. FSN's Laura Macon-Isherwood covered that story from our London bureau.
Rishi Sunak announced a raft of spending commitments that he says falls in line with the government's wider pledge to level up in the UK. Billions set aside for affordable homes, cash for a network of family hubs around the country, and a lift to the minimum wage rate. The pledges came thick and fast. And there were boosts for businesses too, a 50% business rates discount for companies in the retail, hospitality and leisure sectors for 1 year, and an air passenger duty cut on domestic flights from April 2023.
There was a military coup in Sudan this week. The World Bank suspended aid after the civilian government was overthrown. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff confirmed America was deeply concerned about China's test of a nuclear-capable hypersonic weapon. He compared it to the Sputnik moment in the 1950s when the Soviet Union launched the world's first satellite into orbit. And Mort Saul, who pioneered political stand-up in the US, died at the age of 94.
I'm going to work, and there's a guy standing out there selling papers, and he says, "Read all about it. Richard Nixon is going to Russia." Now, that's the first thaw in the Cold War. And it came right out of left field, boy, really wild. And people, were running up and buying these newspapers like crazy. A couple of people came up and said, "To stay?" I said, "No."
In the 50s, he inspired Lenny Bruce, George Carlin, Richard Pryor, Harry Shearer, and many others with an unapologetic skewering of America's political class. And he broke new ground when he first did it in the comedy clubs of San Francisco. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Open phones here if you want to join us. 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And joining you here in the studio, you've got Ian. People's Mountaineer.
Well, it's Ronald Reagan.
603-283-6160. Are you Zombie Reagan or...
Well,
actually...
You know what Nancy says? If you can't beat them, nuke them.
I've been called the great communicator. No, you haven't. No one has ever called you that before.
I used to be much better at a Reagan impersonation. I've just trying to pull one out of the historical past that I haven't rehearsed ever.
And you can take control of the airwaves. We're going to do that with you in just a moment. Also, don't forget, you can head over to freetalklive.com. Download archives. We've got them there for you. There's a player built right into the site. All you have to do to instantly download is click the share button, and then the download link will appear. So it's very, very fast. You just have to know where it is. Just click the share icon and then download.
I just want to say about the vaccine clinic that was opened by unvaccinated people.
Yeah.
British Columbia, BC, so not even the U.S.
Really?
Yeah, this from, where is this, globalnews.ca. Unvaccinated nurses open wellness center in Kamloops, BC. Unvaccinated nurses all over the province are no longer permitted to work for British Columbia health authorities. A group of Kamloops nurses who did not receive the COVID-19 vaccine is using their job loss as an opportunity to start up Ezra Wellness on Tranquil Road. We're not being allowed to help. We were told we weren't wanted, we weren't needed, and yet we know we are, said team lead Glenn Aldernick. Ezra Wellness is still developing its platform, but the clinic says it hopes to ease some of the strain on emergency rooms by assessing patients and offering guidance. It will operate as a private clinic, and as of right now, services are free and the nurses are volunteering.
All right, let's go to your phone calls and thoughts here. Pam's on the line in Las Cruces. Pam, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
Hi. After I heard about this incident happening many years ago, I thought, oh, surely this will get on the news and this won't happen again anywhere. And man, was I naive. Because there was a mentally retarded gentleman. He was probably in his 50s, and he couldn't speak. He was unable to say a single word. And his family had left him sitting in the car outside. It was a cool, cloudy day, so he wasn't uncomfortable waiting in the car while they stepped into a store to do some shopping. And unfortunately, at the very far end of this parking area was a bank. So the police decided this man sitting across the parking lot in the back seat of a car to a bank must be sitting there as the getaway car driver. So they went up to him and began to harass him, drug him out of the car, and beat him up because he wouldn't answer. But when the family came out of the store and saw that their family member was being assaulted by the police, of course they threw a fit, and they got a really nice settlement from the city, I wrote a letter to them expressing my sincerest, heartfelt, thoughts and everything for what had happened to him, and recommended that they get some sort of like a medical alert bracelet or necklace to put on the man. Mm-hmm. And then if somebody came up and started talking to him, to show them that, because that might have saved him from being harmed. Who knows? If it said on there that he was not mentally competent and unable.
No, I mean, these cops are so ignorant and so trigger happy. I don't know if that would have saved him at all. This happened in Las Cruces?
Yeah, this was in Las Cruces. It's been a long time ago, but, it never leaves my thoughts, because I keep hearing so many more times of things happening similarly.
Oh, yeah.
That just never leaves my mind.
One of the stories I remember clearly, I mean, we've talked about so many stories of police violence against peaceful people over the years. There's been so many, it's overwhelming. And I don't even make a point of trying to find them, because if you try to find them, then you find a ton of them. I mean, they're just happening everywhere. But I remember another one that's sort of in the same category of a man was having a diabetic shock come on, basically, and he was driving. He pulled into a 7-Eleven or some kind of convenience store, was going through whatever this, medical issue was that he was having. And while in the middle of this, I guess he's fairly non-responsive during it or whatever, cops come up, and because he wasn't responding to them, them shouting orders at him or whatever it was that they were saying, get out of the car, blah, blah, blah. Because he'd been sitting there and somebody called the cops on him, right? Like he was sitting out front of this 7-Eleven for some period of time. The cops came up. Oh, yeah. They busted his window in, pulled him through the window, and proceeded to violently, assault the man. He was having a medical condition in the middle of it. So
that is horrible.
That happens.
You would think they would be taught first to look for a medical condition that might be happening. But people do.
Why would they teach them that?
My husband, fortunately, was lucky enough. He was starting to feel dizzy, and he pulled over on Highway 70 heading up the hill. And fortunately, a trooper drove up behind him, asked him if there was anything wrong. And he told him, he says, well, I'm feeling dizzy. I didn't want to proceed driving until I felt better, so I just pulled over here to see if it went away. And he says, well, thank you for being a competent driver, and I'll drive up here a little later and check to make sure you're okay. There was a human being.
Hmm. What was your question, Peakless?
Well, you said you would think that they would be trained to look for a medical condition, and why? I mean, they have no competition.
Well, you would think the city would want to have to constantly be paying out money to people who get injured by the police.
Well, they're not.
It's not constant.
Yeah, the city doesn't care about a balanced checkbook, and anything that they pay out to people who win lawsuits ultimately comes from the taxpayers anyway. So it's not coming from their pocket. The city doesn't care.
And frequently, regardless of the evidence, the judge will simply say, no, they were doing what they were trained to do, and no one has to pay out.
Yeah, they're trained to shout orders at people, and if they don't obey, the person's not obeying the orders, then they're trained to escalate the situation, which is not what a caring individual who's actually concerned for the people who pay their salary. It's not how somebody who's your quote-unquote servant should be behaving. But, hey, Pam, thanks for calling and telling that story here tonight. It's sick and disgusting and not uncommon at all. And then it reminds me of another one. I think it was like Washington State, where there was a guy who was hard of hearing, and he was carving something, like sitting on a stoop, basically, like outside carving a thing with a knife. Somebody, I don't know if they called the cops or the cops just happened to see him. My God.
I think they killed that guy.
They did kill that guy, if I recall correctly. Man, oh my God, a man with a knife.
Carving.
And so they started shouting at him. Well, he's hard of hearing.
Right.
So he's not ignoring the cop on purpose. He cannot hear what is being shouted at him, and the cop kills this guy.
If I'm not mistaken, he was a Native American guy. There was a big uproar in the Native community.
Yeah, he was doing like some sort of totem pole or something like that, some kind of Native American carving.
Well, and so there are circumstances where you will get a human being that individual, regardless of their training, is acting like a human being and caring for people. You do get that. But as far as the institution goes, as far as the training goes, as far as all of the entire system behind that officer goes, that is not what they're trained to do.
Yeah.
Well, we don't know that they don't receive training that says look for medical condition first. What we do know is that they don't have any incentive to do that. So
well, and I mean, there's what you're officially trained to do, and there's what your social circumstance suggests that you do.
Yeah.
And as far as the social circumstance goes, like you have impunity. No matter what you do, you are very unlikely to be punished.
Qualified immunity, job perk.
And there's this camaraderie of the Brotherhood of the Blue that occurs amongst the policemen, right? And this
It's a gang.
It is a gang. And this is a very powerful thing. It's the same sort of collective thing that happens with like sports. Right, you see, guys get into barroom fights with my team better than your team, and my team color is better than your team. That kind of thing. It's the same thing that happens. It's that gang mentality, and it's the us against them. So policemen, when hanging out with other policemen, actively, echo chamberly within their organization, reinforce the us against them mentality.
Sure.
You're one of us now, so it's us against them. They are the enemy. We are not. We are the righteous ones. And so they get that in their head and they act accordingly.
Yeah.
They don't have any incentive to
They literally
not
call
act
each
that
other
way.
brothers.
They do.
Yeah. The number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. What is pandemic fatigue? Who's defining it? What's it supposedly all about?
I'm already sick of it.
We'll get into that coming up here. Captain, you've got that story that's on the way. And, of course, you can call in here on this live Saturday edition of Free Talk Live. And feel free to take control of the airwaves. Bring up whatever's on your mind. 603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live.
If you're looking for work, the person you are applying to is probably so swamped with applicants that he or she is tough to reach. So call early in the day, before 8 a.m., before the palace guards arrive. You'll need your prospect's direct number, and here's a sneaky way to get it. Suppose the company's main number is 555-5000. You should call 555-5012. When someone says, "Good morning, Pam Johnson," you should innocently say, "Oops, somebody here must have written this down wrong. I was calling for Tom Frederick. What's his direct number?" If the very next thing you hear isn't Pam giving you Tom's number, it may be, "Good morning, Tom Frederick." For more tips for job seekers and getting better results in all your day-to-day communication, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live.
Pushing women to the ground with a camera in her hand, I think a real man wouldn't do that. And you got to be on roids or something to get into that state of mind.
Well, Wayne hit it on the head. If they're not on steroids, and a number of them, some of them are, most of them probably aren't. They're not on steroids, maybe, but they're definitely high on adrenaline. Former drug task force officer, when he started with the police, he would get that adrenaline rush from writing a ticket. And then, of course, he acclimated himself to it, and then he needed something else. He needed to escalate. He needed to have something else. So it got so extreme that he would leave people uncuffed. Like he'd bust a coke dealer or something like that, and then just leave them uncuffed on the hopes that they would get up and try to run.
So he could kick some butt. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'd rather keep their clients in the dark. There are too many lawyer jokes to count. However, there are some lawyers with more noble intentions. At the Institute for Justice, we bring the light to our clients. We are a non-profit public interest law firm with clear values and principles. At IJ, we fight for those whose most basic rights are denied by the government. Visit our website today at ij.org.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. In the studio with you tonight, you've got Ian,
Beakless Mountaineer,
and the Captain.
And don't forget, you can watch us online. We're streaming on a bunch of different platforms, but the most important one is Odyssey. Odyssey is part of, well, actually they just separated technically from Library. There's an interesting press release that I was reading the other day. Library, lbry.com, which is the media sharing protocol that is decentralized, uncensorable, and blockchain-based. They launched Odyssey in 2020 to compete with YouTube, and now they've officially separated from Odyssey. They decided Odyssey needed to be its own separate company, basically. So they're still friends or whatever, but now they're separated corporate-wise.
But they're still using that protocol, right?
Yeah, Odyssey is still sort of backed by Library, but
so it's like if you had a company that was HTTP incorporated, and they invent this protocol, and then you've got, we're the internet. It's like, okay, you're your own company, internet.
That's one way you can look at it. In this case, Library was a little uncomfortable with some of the things that Odyssey sort of felt like that they needed to do, like have credit card processing and do some centralized hosting.
Yeah.
So some of the videos on Odyssey are actually centralized hosted, apparently, and then if the central host fails, then it falls back to the Library protocol. So they're not pure Library from what I've learned recently. So Library felt like it's not entirely aligned with our mission of
really
decentralization.
Affect our processes.
No,
here
it
at
won't
Free
at all.
Talk Live.
No.
We still stream Odyssey, and then we still have our stuff archived and on Library.
And Odyssey is still the most free speech platform out there because it is, again, backed by the Library protocol, which is an uncensorable, decentralized media sharing protocol. And if you want to learn more about Library, go to lbry.com. If you want to follow our Odyssey channel, get over to video.freetalklive.com. Now, unfortunately, some people still follow us on YouTube and some of the other more centralized systems like that, more big tech systems. And, we may be on YouTube for another few weeks. We may be on for another few months. We may not be on tomorrow. It just all depends on when those people decide to pull the plug on us for some of the opinions that we have here. But we go to your calls and thoughts, and amazingly, actually, somebody called in from the YouTube audience. Usually the YouTube audience just throws in chats, and they never actually call. So, Steve, I appreciate you calling in tonight. Listening in Illinois, you're on Free Talk Live.
Good. I just looked up you about this Supreme Court case. They said they ruled against the religious exception, and they used a couple other court cases citing that they can rarely refuse the religious exception, but in this case of Maine, they have a law for medical exemption. So whatever motive the Supreme Court has, who knows?
Well, their motive is clear. Their motive is to back the state, to back the government, to do whatever they can within the excuses that they can make legally to excuse more violence, to excuse more corruption, to excuse bigger government and more control over our lives. I mean, that's clearly what their job is.
Well, even in the case Jacobson versus Massachusetts, the plaintiff there was not forced to take a vaccination. He only paid a $5 fine at that time in 1905. So another thing I wanted to point out too, the Supreme Court is not the final arbiter of a constitution. Their rulings can be ignored. Even Thomas Jefferson warned that if you allowed the judicial system to interpret the Constitution, that the government would become oppressive, as it was that when we changed and separated it. So,
well, I totally agree with ignoring court decisions. I mean, I think everybody should ignore the government entirely, and then maybe they'll go away. Like, if enough people just ignored them, then they would have no power. But unfortunately, we're not to that point yet.
Well, if men were angels, we wouldn't need government.
Well, why would you need government if men aren't angels?
Well, government is the very people that they warned us about. You know, men are not angels, but they're getting elected into public offices. The problem is,
if men aren't angels, then why are we putting them in power of us?
Exactly.
So no, that's what government is men in power of other men. And if they're not angels, then why would we give them power?
Government is a necessary evil.
Why do people keep saying that? Why would you need evil?
Evil's never necessary.
Because that is how a system of laws was supposed to work. If the Constitution...
But the system of laws is BS. It's just a system of men who do whatever they want to do. They ignore the law.
And the problem from that is because the people out here fail to do their job.
What's that?
The people are the guardians of the Constitution. That means we're supposed to hold government accountable.
How?
First of all, voting.
How has that ever changed anything?
Doesn't work. The statistical analysis shows unequivocally it does not change our policies.
When our Constitution was created after the Revolutionary War, men were a lot more honorable then than today.
I don't know if that's true at all.
Oh, most definitely. We were first of all,
it wasn't long after they formed the Constitution that there was the Alien and Sedition Acts, I think, came real soon after that. They were violating that thing, day number 2.
Well, you had the War of 1812, where the British come back over to try to take back. I mean,
well, you had the Whiskey Rebellion, which completely overruled what the Constitution originally was supposed to be anyway.
Yeah, I mean, what I hear from you, Steve, is you're just kind of touting the standard lines about government. Oh, we need evil. We need evil for what? What for?
No, absolutely not.
If we don't need evil, then there's no necessary evil.
Well, that's what you said, Steve. You said it's a necessary evil, which means you need evil.
I'm telling you what the founding fathers warned us about. Everything that I just said.
Well, sure, but Eisenhower warned us about the military-industrial complex that he built.
And it's still there, What good has that done?
And why was it? Why was it? Because we allowed our politicians, first of all, to create laws that they had no power to create.
I didn't. I had no say in the matter.
You weren't even alive.
I had no say in the matter. You had no say in the matter. There is no way of us keeping them accountable. It doesn't work.
Yeah, you can't just go and vote for another politician and think that that's going to somehow solve this. That's what people have been trying for hundreds of years at this point, and look where we are.
You have the people that are not knowledgeable, that are not educated today to understand the proper role of government, first of all.
What's the proper role of government?
The proper role of government is what we hold them accountable for.
That's like a circular answer. That doesn't even mean anything. What should government be doing? In Steve's ideal world, what should government be doing?
We can't hold them accountable for anything.
What should they be doing in Steve's ideal world?
Okay, in the Declarations world, which is a legal document put forth by the Lee Resolution, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal and endowed by their creator certain unalienable rights.
I know what the Declaration of Independence says. Okay. I've signed my own personal Declaration of Independence from the whole idea of government, from the whole idea of the state, and you know what? They ignore it. They just don't care. They still force me into their system, and they force me against my will to do things that I don't want to do. I'm asking you specifically, what should the government, this gang of human beings that is ruling over us by the threat of violence, what should they be doing?
They should be protecting our rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness.
And what makes you think they'll ever do that?
when we start holding them accountable.
By doing what? Voting?
No, all right, I'll give you an example. You've got a conservative state, all right? And you put in the state constitution that an amendment stating that if any politician violates their oath of office, that they will be imprisoned.
Why would they do that?
Who's going to enforce it?
How do
Them
we do
on
it?
themselves?
Yeah, they would never put that in.
It.
They would never put that in.
They don't follow the state and
would.
national constitutions already. They violate them completely.
Yeah. They don't care what the Constitution says, dude, and they don't punish themselves, and they would never, ever take the time to amend the Constitution to punish themselves. These people are psychopaths.
Well, I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing with you.
Well, then you don't allow psychopaths to control your life, and you don't fix the problem by voting, because that's the system they want you to use.
Can you tell me right off the top of your head what powers have been granted? And it's simple. What powers have been granted to the federal government by the states? I can tell you real quick. Do you know?
Does it matter? Because the federal government does whatever the hell they want to do.
Yeah, that's no longer true.
Asking.
Yeah, that hasn't been true since the Whiskey Rebellion. After the Whiskey Rebellion, we showed absolutely certainly that the states did not have the rights, did not grant them to the federal government. The federal government takes its so-called rights by force and always has.
Steve, thanks for the call tonight. Look, you're not going to vote your way out of this problem. The federal government is completely a failed experiment, and you need to admit it to yourself and say, all right, best solution forward if you want to use the political process is secession. Thanks for the call. More coming up. Hour 3 next.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks with the Week in Review. President Biden is spending the weekend at the G20 summit in Italy and then heading on to Glasgow for the COP26 climate change talks. He had hoped to enjoy legislative success on Capitol Hill before his departure, but once again that proved elusive, with the president's infrastructure, climate change and broader spending proposals still waiting to be put to a vote. The president on Thursday claimed he's finally forged unity among his fellow Democrats.
I'm pleased to announce that after months of tough and thoughtful negotiations, I know we have a historic economic framework. It's a framework that will create millions of jobs, grow the economy, invest in our nation and our people.
But there are still questions about the final shape of any legislation that will make its way to the President's desk. The Queen spent the week resting, her official engagements cancelled amid concerns over her health. Britain's 95-year-old monarch has now been advised by doctors to take another 2 weeks off. She will not be appearing in person at the COP26 summit, but will send a video message instead. The British government unveiled its autumn budget and confirmed it will lift a COVID-19 freeze on public sector wages. FSN's Laura Makin-Isherwood covered that story from our London bureau.
Rishi Sunak announced a raft of spending commitments that he says falls in line with the government's wider pledge to level up in the UK. Billions set aside for affordable homes, cash for a network of family hubs around the country, and a lift to the minimum wage rate. The pledges came thick and fast. And there were boosts for businesses too, a 50% business rates discount for companies in the retail, hospitality and leisure sectors for 1 year, and an air passenger duty cut on domestic flights from April 2023.
There was a military coup in Sudan this week. The World Bank suspended aid after the civilian government was overthrown. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff confirmed America was deeply concerned about China's test of a nuclear-capable hypersonic weapon. He compared it to the Sputnik moment in the 1950s when the Soviet Union launched the world's first satellite into orbit. And Mort Saul, who pioneered political stand-up in the US, died at the age of 94.
I'm going to work, and there's a guy standing out there selling papers, and he says, read all about it. Richard Nixon is going to Russia. Now, that's the first thaw in the Cold War. And it came right out of left field, boy, really wild. And people, were running up and buying these newspapers like crazy. A couple of people came up and said, to stay? So, no.
In the 50s, he inspired Lenny Bruce, George Carlin, Richard Pryor, Harry Shearer, and many others with an unapologetic skewering of America's political class. And he broke new ground when he first did it in the comedy clubs of San Francisco. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. More now on Mort Saul. In the 1960s, he told The Voice of America why he thought political humour was so important.
Yeah, well, this society shows no signs of a utopia. There are a great many things that bear attacking. I think that the best thing anybody can do for this country is, this country really needs a critic. I was once talking to a girl who belonged to the Democratic Party in Massachusetts, and she was critical of one of the candidates, and she said to me, he really isn't fit, in my view. I said, what are you going to do when you're called upon to vote? She said, well, I'm a good party girl. I'm going to vote for him. And it occurred to me that maybe the best thing she could do for her party was not to vote for him. Maybe the best thing you can do for your party is to criticize. The old term, His Majesty's loyal opposition. I think this country needs a critic in order to survive, as a matter of fact. It needs more than one, but so far it has one. You need somebody on the attack who audits what we do.
US investors will be turning their attention this week to the health of the US labour market. It comes after data released last week showed the US economy grew sluggishly last quarter. From FSN's business desk in New York with the preview, Will Denzelo.
The US economy added 194,000 jobs in September, well short of the 500,000 some analysts had expected. On Friday, October's jobs report is due out, and investors will be hoping for signs of strength in the US labour market. Wall Street will be looking for positive news this week following some recent tepid pieces of economic data. Consumer spending data out Friday ticked up 0.6%, which was largely in line with predictions, but inflation was seen as a major contributing factor. William Denzelo, New York.
In the coming week, our focus will be intensely on COP26, the climate change summit in Glasgow. The FSN team is there. You'll hear their reports here and follow them on Twitter at Feature Story. And that's the Week in Review from Feature Story News. Simon Marks reporting.
Congress today passed a landmark Social Security reform bill they estimate could save the troubled program billions. The so-called Grab Life by the Balls bill includes provisions to cut the cost of cigarettes in half, outlaws helmets, and adjusts the CDC's recommended amount of sleep from 8 hours a night to when you're dead. The bill's short-term initiatives aim to immediately cut Social Security costs in half by replacing senior citizens' monthly checks with vouchers for grain, alcohol, and extreme sports.
I got this coupon to motocross over a canyon. Better do my part to help the deficit.
Supporters in Congress say the cost will be offset by the so-called pussy tax on products such as sweaters, vegetables, hand soap, and flu shots.
America, would you rather die old, broke, and forgotten, or die a mother legend?
The new program follows in the footsteps of the Life is a Cartoon Medicare campaign, which encourages seniors to run full speed off of cliffs and smoke sticks of dynamite.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, and we are kicking off the third hour of the program here tonight. Coming up, pandemic fatigue. The captain will be telling us about it, and you can share your thoughts on whatever happens to be on your mind. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you, it's Ian.
Nicholas Mountaineer.
And the captain.
We go to your phone calls and your thoughts. First up, he's Major Payne on the line with us in Michigan. Major Payne, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
Hey, gents. Thanks for taking my call.
What's on your mind tonight, Major?
Well, real quick on the Alec Baldwin thing.
Mm-hmm.
This was an old six-shooter. Okay, anybody with half a brain can look at the front of that cylinder, give it one click, and tell if there's any live lead heads in that cylinder.
Yeah, I mean, it is one of the easiest guns to check whether or not it's actually loaded. That much is true.
Yeah, you can see everything going on. It's not like there's an enclosed clip or an enclosed breech or anything else.
Yeah, but if you're an incompetent, talentless hack, that might get away from you.
Besides, it's not his job to do anything. He's a movie star. He has people to do things for him.
Misrepresentation once again. A yellow coward trying to play a hard-ass cowboy.
All right, what else you got?
Well, your first caller of the night talked about that old boy that was waiting by his buddy's truck to come back with a gas can, and he got whooped and waylaid and charged with assault in the police.
Yeah, Alaska state troopers attacked a 70-plus-year-old man for standing alongside the road. Yep.
Oh, that was Alaska?
Yeah, that's right.
Dude, you waiting on gas in Alaska, that's a life or death sentence right there.
It doesn't help when the cops beat the hell out of you either.
I've been there. It depends on the time of the year.
What about it, Major Payne? What about that issue?
Well, pretty much the same thing happened to me.
Okay.
Well, it wasn't quite the same. I mean, they had actual probable cause to pull me over. I was speeding by 5 miles an hour. But
you horrible person.
I ended up with about 7 troopers around me.
Wow.
And this one young buck that was as big as any Viking I've ever seen, when I lifted one hand off of his vehicle, because they had me in the spread and frisk.
Put your palms on the hood, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So, well, actually, I was ahead of his ram bar he had on there. I was holding on to that. But I lifted one hand and pointed at the parking lot and says, "May I move my truck 15 feet so it doesn't get towed?" At that exact time, when my hand was lifted and my muscles were released, he hit me in my short ribs, dropped me like a rock. And my face hit the pavement, blew my jaw open. Every garment I was wearing was soaked. I went by there the next day, and there was a 2-foot puddle of blood where I sat. And then the ambulance driver who shows up, he ends up being a guy who I've done work for, my buddy Mike. And I'm like, dude, I did not deserve this. And, well, amazingly, ever since then, the cops around here have left me alone a little more.
Because you're friends with the ambulance driver, or because...
these guys talk to one another, right? And that dude, I'm sure them 6 other cops didn't agree with what he did. But
what makes you sure of that?
Blue, we got to support our brothers. They're just like the doctors and the lawyers. They all scratch each other's asses when they need to.
What makes you sure the other 6 guys didn't agree with what the cop did? I mean, they didn't arrest him.
Well, that's pure speculation on my part. Yeah. But on the other hand,
I mean, it could just be total coincidence that they've left you alone. I mean, maybe they just haven't seen you out and about and just decided not to mess with you for whatever reason. I don't know. I wouldn't draw any conclusions.
I've had them up on my bumper a couple times since then. I'll try to do that intimidation.
And they won't pull you over?
Then,
they won't.
A couple blocks later, they'll just flip around or take a turn or whatever.
Well, hey, thanks, Major Payne, for the call tonight. I appreciate it. The number here is 603-283-6160. If that's what it takes to get them to leave you alone is to let them beat you up a little bit, okay. I don't know if you can draw that conclusion from that necessarily.
Yeah.
Well, no, it sounds like he was saying that what it took was the emergency driver being on his side.
I don't buy it either. Like, why would the cops care what an ambulance driver thinks?
Well, his theory on the matter is that they all talk to each other, and
I know that's what he said.
Yeah.
I don't know if I believe it.
Well, I definitely know that I definitely know that's the case from cop to cop, but I don't know. This is the first I've heard the idea that that applies to the emergency truck drivers.
The cops don't even get along with different departments. Like, they have names for the sheriffs, for instance. So, like, the city cops have usually some sort of diminutive, pejorative kind of name for the sheriffs, and they call, I think the liquor enforcement, they call them liquor dicks, for instance. Like, there's different, names that they all have calling towards one another because they're not necessarily friendly with each other, even though they're all sort of on the same team. That's my understanding of having known a few cops, and they've told me some of those names. So I can't see why they would all of a sudden have some sort of respect for the EMTs.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's one of those me against my brother, me and my brother against my dad, and my whole family against anyone else.
Could be. The number here, if you want to join us, 603-283-6160. Captain, you've got a story we've been teasing all night here tonight. Do you want to jump into it here?
Sure.
All right, what do we got?
So this is from worldcouncilofhealth.org. When I read through this, all I could think of was, this sounds like a bunch of propaganda. Now, pandemic fatigue does have a definition, and you can find it obviously by looking it up. But this article goes to say that pandemic fatigue is something that you may likely know exactly what it means, even if you've never heard the phrase before. The World Health Organization declared a worldwide pandemic on March 11, 2020, and despite early assurances that it would be under control in a matter of weeks, over 18 months later, we continue to live in uncertain times. It's one of those phrases I hate, uncertain times.
Yeah, as if any time was certain.
Yeah. People, young and old, around the globe are simultaneously struggling to maintain balance while being bombarded with mixed messages driven by fear and chaos. Towards the end of 2020, the WHO issued a call urging people against pandemic fatigue, which is described as a lack of motivation to follow recommended COVID-19 protection behaviors.
Please don't get sick of our BS. We need you to keep doing it.
The World Council for Health disagrees with this definition that places the assumption of deficiency on the individual rather than on the system itself. I also concur there. Let's address the WHO's incorrect definition of pandemic fatigue and what we can do about it. In reality, pandemic fatigue is much more than being tired of wearing a mask, being physically distant from family and friends, following strict sanitizing and hand-washing rituals, and other unprecedented and sometimes confusing public health guidelines. It's perfectly natural to be tired of what's going on.
Right, especially when it really doesn't make any damn difference, and the disease is not killing anyone for the most part.
Come on, guys, it's almost 2 weeks.
Yeah.
We're almost at the end of 2 weeks.
18 months is...
It'll be over soon.
2 weeks, okay. Pandemic fatigue is not an illness. It's the body's way of recognizing that something is wrong and the resultant effects on our physical and mental health. Pandemic fatigue is a natural response to an unnatural situation affecting people around the world. By understanding what pandemic fatigue is and understanding that you are not alone in experiencing it, you can gain the strength to grow and thrive.
To grow more obedient to the mandates? That's the point of this story, right? Is to encourage people to, you'll pull through it, just stick with the rules, right?
It certainly seems to me that is the case.
Just nose to the grindstone and obey as hard as you can.
Just think about how many lives you'll save.
What are the signs of pandemic fatigue? Well, pandemic fatigue, also termed COVID-19 fatigue, apparently, according to this article, can be likened to a form of burnout, a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress.
So just a quick thought. I would imagine that since COVID literally means the disease, that COVID fatigue would mean that you got fatigue from the disease. Not all the mandates, not all of this surrounding nonsense, but like the disease could cause you to be fatigued.
Yes, I had that, like in a clinical sense, when I had the COVID and I was getting over it. I was definitely fatigued from having the COVID. This, however, is talking about all of the symptoms as a result of all of the mandates and the rules and the government overreach and the social distancing and the mask wearing and all that kind of stuff. That it is natural for you to feel something's wrong, but here's how you can get through it.
We got more coming up here. If you want to weigh in on this or whatever's on your mind, the number is 603-283-6160. Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless free market non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
Hi, I'm Derek J. I don't want a politician to represent me. To me, government is the idea that one group of people can coerce everyone to comply with an edict or face increasing punishments up to and including death. Despite perhaps the most noble of intentions, the best government services are a far cry from what could be provided for by voluntary interactions. Besides, the people who call themselves the government wage wars and put peaceful people in jail for crimes involving no victims. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and the number, if you want to join us, 603-283-6160. We do a live radio show 7 nights a week. This would be our live Saturday episode. Tonight, it's Ian.
Nicholas Mountaineer.
And and the Reverend Captain Kickass.
The number is, again, 603-283-6160. Open phones, as always. We're talking about pandemic fatigue. And no, it's not the kind of fatigue that we've experienced from basically the beginning of this thing, where we're sick of the authoritarianism, sick of the medical mandates, the vaccine passports, the forced vaccinations, all this BS, this authoritarian medical hellscape that's been shoved down everybody's throats. No, it's not fatigue of that. From what you've described, Captain?
Actually, it is.
No, it is absolutely fatigue of that.
No.
It's just that's not the problem. Like it's not that these things happening to you is the problem. It's your fatigue of these things that is the problem.
He was describing people who have been obedient the whole time. Yes. Like I'm fatigued by the authoritarianism existing. Yes. I do not put on a mask. I do not wash my hands more often than I normally did previously. Right. I don't go around grabbing whatever the hell what is that, hand sanitizer, and obsessively wiping it on myself. I don't do any of that stuff, and I'm fatigued by all of the authoritarianism. They're specifically talking about people who, I'm doing my best, and I've been wearing the mask. I've doubled my mask. I keep my hand sanitizer in my car, and they pump it. The people who've been obedient, who've been doing every single thing that they've been told, some of them are apparently getting tired of it. That's what they're referring to.
Right, and what they're saying, or what they're alluding to, they're not coming right out and saying it. What they're alluding to summarize it a little bit, is that the problem isn't that you should be sick of these things. It's that you should be able to continue to be obedient and get over these symptoms somehow.
So the people who are promoting this, some organization,
WorldCouncilForHealth.org.
Yeah, so these people are all about promoting more obedience.
Now the symptoms, though, for both cases, for both your case and for the obedient, similar symptoms. Right? Anxiety, depressed mood, irritability, fear, apathy, fatigue, weight gain, weight loss, increase in alcohol consumption.
Weight gain or weight loss.
Increase in alcohol consumption. Sleeping too much. Sleeping too little. Restless sleep. Anger. Negative feelings.
I actually haven't been feeling most of those things. I don't have anxiety. I don't understand people that do personally. It doesn't make sense to me. But I do agree there was a little bit of depression that I experienced last year. It was like when I was realizing how obedient people were, I was a little bit depressed about that. That was pretty
and as far as the
sickening.
people who are obeying this stuff, I mean, they were anxious at the beginning. They were anxious in March. They're anxious now. That wasn't fatigue that gave them anxiety.
No, that's true. They're literally afraid.
We also must, of course, acknowledge the recent and dramatic rise in suicides.
That's been going on since last year. Stand by, Captain. We'll continue the discussion. I got Charles on the line here, listening to KINA in Salina, Kansas. Go ahead, Charles.
Hi, gents. Hey, man. I agree with you gents on all this crap. I've read several articles on this whole thing. I read a recent article by an MD who said there is not now, nor has there ever been, a pandemic. This whole thing is a ginned up piece of crap.
Correct.
Yeah, it's all about authoritarian obedience and
fear,
growing the state.
Yes, but I do disagree with you on the cops, and may I state my case without being cut off? Actually, this is Free Talk Live, right?
It sure is.
You saw Tombstone, right? Where in the court, remember the court scene where the bad guy with a bandage around his head stood up and said, "This is how they treat people who want to come peaceably." And Virgil Earp jumped up and said, "Peaceably, my ass!" Remember that scene?
I've seen the movie. I enjoyed it, but I don't remember the scene.
I don't remember that scene either.
Either way, how does that apply to your point?
Well, what is your point about the police? I'm not really clear.
My overall point is these men deal with the dregs of society, people who would kill your grandmother to make $1. Every single day they deal with these people. Now, I'm not saying they're all saints, but they're all humans. They're just like us.
Well, a lot of these people would kill your grandma for free.
I do
a lot
not
of the police themselves. I mean, we were just covering a story where this guy's just sitting by the highway, and the troopers come along and for no good reason beat him up while he's waiting to get gas. And that's not an uncommon story.
And he was in his 70s.
I mean,
that's your grandfather.
And you bring up Tombstone. The cowboys in that movie, so-called cowboys, the gang that wore the red sashes, to my mind, are exactly what the police are like. They just wear a different uniform.
I don't agree with you, gents. These guys, if you had to do what they had to, have you ever done a ride-along?
Yes, actually I have.
Okay. Well, I would think that you would maybe have some understanding, of the type of people that they have to deal with every day. They're not saints. They're just like us. They're not divine beings.
Okay.
Which is why they should have the same accountability that we do.
Look, I get what you're saying. It can be a tough job. I get what you're saying. There's no doubt about that. There are definitely some bad hombres out there. But that does not excuse, I'm sorry, Charles, that does not excuse them abusing peaceful people, destroying innocent people's lives, and getting away with it, which is what happens all the time.
But it seems like one of the major tenets of your program is constantly trashing the cops. It seems like that's a major tenet of your show. And I think you overdo it.
No, I don't trash the cops. I trash the specific officers who are violating people's rights, and those other officers who won't do anything about it, which is the majority of them, who stand by and do nothing as the police abuse people.
If you're dealing with dirt bags every day of your life, have you ever done that?
Hey, Charles,
every day of your life?
Yeah, I've lived in a bad neighborhood. That's pretty much what it's like.
I have a solution. It's real easy. It's real easy for the cops to gain themselves a much better reputation and to eliminate all of the crap that happens, right? All of the bad apples, as people like you often refer to them as. All the police need to do is get together with themselves. If their brotherhood is so powerful and strong amongst themselves, they get together with themselves and decide that they are no longer going to enforce victimless crimes. That's all they have to do. All of a sudden, their reputation goes through. Hang on, Charles. Hang on, Charles.
Okay.
All of a sudden, their reputation goes through the roof because they're only enforcing crimes that have a victim, where a person or somebody's property
that would fix
has
a
been
lot.
harmed.
When you take the oath, aren't you obligated to enforce the law?
No, you're not. See, this just shows.
It's impossible to do anyway.
Haven't you gone on a ride-along?
I have not. No.
Interesting. You asked if we had gone on a ride-along, and you
he's seen
yourself
plenty of-
haven't gone on a ride-along. Well, let me tell you what. Why don't you go on a ride-along, if they even still allow it, because after we went on a ride-along here, me and Sam Dodson and my girlfriend at the time, this was like 2007, they actually stopped offering them. So they didn't have any more ride-alongs after we went and had a really interesting conversation with the officer, who's actually in favor of ending the war on drugs. He's in favor of self-defense and owning a gun. Of course, it's New Hampshire. Most of the cops here are decent on that particular issue. But the one thing that any honest cop, or at least if they're being honest in that moment, will tell you is they have what's called discretion.
Yes.
They are not obligated to enforce every law. They can enforce whatever ones they feel like on whoever it is they feel like enforcing. So if they want to enforce one law one day and then don't want to enforce it the next day, it's up to their discretion. Charles, thanks for the call tonight. Appreciate it. There's more coming up here in moments. This is Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks with the Week in Review. President Biden is spending the weekend at the G20 summit in Italy and then heading on to Glasgow for the COP26 climate change talks. He had hoped to enjoy legislative success on Capitol Hill before his departure, but once again that proved elusive, with the president's infrastructure, climate change and broader spending proposals still waiting to be put to a vote. The president on Thursday claimed he's finally forged unity among his fellow Democrats.
I'm pleased to announce that after months of tough and thoughtful negotiations, I know we have a historic economic framework. It's a framework that will create millions of jobs, grow the economy, invest in our nation and our people.
But there are still questions about the final shape of any legislation that will make its way to the president's desk. The Queen spent the week resting, her official engagements cancelled amid concerns over her health. Britain's 95-year-old monarch has now been advised by doctors to take another 2 weeks off. She will not be appearing in person at the COP26 summit, but will send a video message instead. The British government unveiled its autumn budget and confirmed it will lift a COVID-19 freeze on public sector wages. FSN's Laura Macon-Isherwood covered that story from our London bureau.
Rishi Sunak announced a raft of spending commitments that he says falls in line with the government's wider pledge to level up in the UK. Billions set aside for affordable homes, cash for a network of family hubs around the country, and a lift to the minimum wage rate. The pledges came thick and fast. And there were boosts for businesses too, a 50% business rates discount for companies in the retail, hospitality and leisure sectors for 1 year, and an air passenger duty cut on domestic flights from April 2023.
There was a military coup in Sudan this week. The World Bank suspended aid after the civilian government was overthrown. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff confirmed America was deeply concerned about China's test of a nuclear-capable hypersonic weapon. He compared it to the Sputnik moment in the 1950s when the Soviet Union launched the world's first satellite into orbit. And Mort Saul, who pioneered political stand-up in the US, died at the age of 94.
I'm going to work, and there's a guy standing out there selling papers, and he says, read all about it. Richard Nixon is going to Russia. Now, that's the first thaw in the Cold War. And it came right out of left field, boy, really wild. And people, were running up and buying these newspapers like crazy. A couple of people came up and said, to stay? I said, no.
In the 50s, he inspired Lenny Bruce, George Carlin, Richard Pryor, Harry Shearer, and many others with an unapologetic skewering of America's political class. And he broke new ground when he first did it in the comedy clubs of San Francisco. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live Saturday show. The number, if you want to join us here, it's 603-283-6160.
Tonight on Cops.
603-283-6160. With you here tonight, it's Ian.
Nicholas Mountaineer.
And bad boys, what you gonna do?
You can join us online anytime at freetalklive.com. And if you are like Elizabeth, who you want to support Free Talk Live directly, you can do that through the AMPS Patreon that we launched within the last couple weeks to replace the old AMP program, which shut down with the old website. Sadly, that is gone, but the Patreon's a new thing, and it makes it super easy to join. You can use PayPal, you can use your debit card or credit card over at amps.freetalklive.com. amps.freetalklive.com stands for advertise, market, promote, and support. And if you want to help us out, you can do it for as little as $5 a month. Elizabeth, she's doing at least $10 a month. She's a gold level amp over at amps.freetalklive.com. We go back to your phone calls and thoughts.
Yes, sir. Just one quick note. You said you make it, it's a major tenet of your show to bash the cops. It's a major tenet of our show to point out that they're human beings and need to be held to the same standard as human beings. That's it.
Well, and let's not forget, the reason that they have a horrific reputation is not because there's three guys sitting behind microphones on a national talk radio show.
Yeah, we didn't do that.
Right.
They have created their own reputation. They are the ones responsible for their reputation.
And that's what happens when you give people impunity. If we do not get held accountable for our actions, then we turn into these terrible things.
And as the captain pointed out, if they would just stop enforcing victimless crime laws,
it would fix all of this.
It would really do a lot to repair their reputation. Now, it wouldn't change overnight, right? Like people would still not really trust them, and they'd still hold them at arm's length.
I think it would, honestly, because you would have so few opportunities for things to go terribly, terribly wrong.
Well, I get where you're coming from. I think it's going to take some time to mend those bridges.
It would be a huge improvement, in my opinion, and it doesn't even need to be all. It could start with one precinct.
Mm-hmm.
One chief could get together with all of his officers and say, okay, guys, you know what? As of today, we're no longer enforcing anything with, he's got to outline what a victimless crime is, right? But if there's no person and no property that have been harmed, do nothing.
Yep. That would be amazing. That would actually be like a humane thing.
Oh, weird.
Let's go to your calls and thoughts. James is on the line in West Virginia listening to WVTS in Charleston. Go ahead, James.
Yes, I was calling to back up the individual on the 1874 Colt cowboy gun that everybody calls a cowboy gun. I've shot about 40 to 50,000 rounds. When I look at an authentic program of reenactment, I look at their firearms to see Clint Eastwood, Denzel Washington are really good at that. The last one of the last movies that Denzel Washington was in, I don't know the name of it. It played about 4 or 5 months ago. He had a cold single action, and you could actually, for one split second, look down the cylinder. You could see the casing from the front of the gun, and you could see the wrap, usually they wrap black powder or something in paper, so it's not a solid slug to kill.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, you are not supposed to point a gun unless you shoot. But on a set, he could have easily. He didn't have to point at the heart. He didn't have to point at her head. He could have pointed 4 inches to the right or to the left. Excuse me, very easily, and not have killed this person.
That's very
So
true.
he had to be on something.
Well,
to be that stupid.
Well, it's probably just the the hubris of being.
I'm getting into character.
No,
it's
I think
important.
I think it's just like a child with a toy gun, right?
I've shot. You just. If it's an 1851, 1861, you can't. You can look in the end of the chamber and you can see a ball or grease. If it's 1874, you see a lead bullet.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that lady cop that shot that individual with a yellow pistol that weighs a pound, where a Glock weighs probably 2 pounds. I'm not a fan of Glock. That's one handgun I'm not a fan of. And yet 2 people were holding this young man down. Whether he was breaking the law or not, you don't just come up, put a bullet in him, and kill him, and say, "Oops, I made a mistake." So that's
I don't know if Alec Baldwin was high or if he was just a guy who believed that he's being taken care of. He's a pampered actor.
That's exactly it. And he treats the situation in the same way a child would treat a toy gun, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's in a situation of make-believe. That's what actors do. They make believe. So he's on set. He believes, and this is just my estimation, he believes that his people checked handed him the equivalent of a toy gun.
And he has
blanks.
no responsibility in his mind to do anything.
And they're doing make-believe. So, of course, when you're doing make-believe, I know I'm guilty of this as a kid when playing Cowboys and Indians with my childhood friends, right? I would take the cap gun and point it at my friend and bang, right? That's what you do because you have a toy gun.
Because it's a cap gun.
Because you're in the land of make-believe. And so that's where this guy was. That's his job, is to be in the land of make-believe.
Thank you, James, for the call tonight. I do appreciate hearing from you. Let's talk. Go ahead.
Just a quick note. I really wish that they had done something to fix this when Brandon Lee got killed by the same sort of situation.
Mm-hmm. That was, back in the late 90s?
Yeah, the Crow, the son of Bruce Lee.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's go to Tagman. He's on the line listening in Washington State to KBKW in Aberdeen. Go ahead, Tagman.
Hey, what are you doing?
We're doing a radio show. What's on your mind?
Hey, just tired of the COVID. You know what I mean? I mean it.
Got a little fatigue, do you?
It's petty. I'm sick of it. But I got a police harassment case that happened a while back.
Okay.
All right.
Is your radio on in the background, by the way, Tagman? Because it's going to confuse the hell out of you if it is.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah.
You got to turn that thing down or leave the room.
Okay, hold on.
One or the other. Because it'll drive me nuts having to hear it over and over again. And it'll drive you crazy because you're listening to yourself talk like 7 seconds later or whatever, and it'll just...
Is that better?
It'll drive you nuts. Go ahead. Much better.
Okay. So, I was home and I got a little...
Damn it. Now your phone's crapping out, man.
At me and said, am I breaking up?
You were. Now you're okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, I live in a tin can.
All right.
I live in a trailer.
Yeah, step outside if you can. Go ahead.
She's a sexy beast. But anyway.
Well, I'll take your word for it.
Okay. Yeah, it's not suggested. But my wife goes, hey, man, we need milk. And I'm looking at her. I'm like, oh, man, it's 9 o'clock at night, you know. So I go to Safeway, and I get everything but milk. You know, I load up all my groceries and that, and I'm taking off.
Typical guy, right? Like the wife says she needs something specific, and you forget to get the milk.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm not a trained dog, but I kind of liked it when that was happening. But so I'm pulling out, going down the parking lot, and I see a state patrolman moving past me, right? And then all of a sudden, I didn't get milk. So I turn around, and I go into Safeway, and I get my milk.
Okay.
I come out, and the next thing that I know is I hear, put your hands on top of your head and walk backwards. You know, and I'm like, well, what the hell? You know, okay.
Wait, I have a question. What did you do with the milk?
I was done. That's funny shit there.
Oh, man, we can't have you saying that on the air.
Don't
Damn it. I really wanted to hear that story. That's too bad. He was good at telling a story, too, you know?
He was getting there.
Yeah. Would have loved to hear the rest of that, but unfortunately we got
Captain,
rules.
You were too funny.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really like. So he comes out of the store with the milk, and they go, "All right, put your hands up," and like he gets arrested. So like, what eventually happened to the milk?
I wish we could find out, but unfortunately he said the S word.
The milk's gone bad. The milk's gone bad.
We can't finish it tonight, but maybe he'll call tomorrow for our live Halloween episode and finish the story, and you'll be on for that show, Captain. And I hear some of the ladies are going to be dressing up for it, too. So check out the cam feeds. More coming up.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. The number, if you want to join us, 603-283-6160. Maybe enough time for you. If you join us right now, joining you tonight, it's Ian,
People's Mountaineer,
and the Captain.
The number again, 603-283-6160. Of course, you can join us online anytime you want over at freetalklive.com. And our live stream is now fixed. The player on the website, when we relaunched the website a couple weeks ago, the live streaming player little widget thing that's in there, it wasn't working on some browsers. Now it is working. So those of you who... I've got a couple emails saying, oh man, I can only listen to the podcast now because the player didn't work live. It's working now, so feel free to give it a try. Of course, we're also streaming on various different video platforms. There's a ton of different ways to listen to Free Talk Live. You can learn about them all over on our new-ish website, freetalklive.com.
I think it's awesome, too, that many of our listeners have like their preferred method.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and which is why we offer so many different ways. Of course, is because people have different preferences.
That's right.
Which is a perfect illustration of individualism.
Yeah.
And when you suddenly can't access your preferred method of listening to the show, that's a disturbance in your personal force, if you will.
It's true.
And so, I mean, I'm glad that we have people that have decided, of the many ways that you can consume our content, you have your preferred way. And thank you for listening.
We go back to your phone calls and thoughts. Thomas calling from beautiful Keene, New Hampshire. You're on Free Talk Live.
Yes, hi, and thank you for having me in. Basically, I was calling today because I am working on, and I have been calling and talking with Ian. We've been doing stuff for years, but at the present moment, I have something called the Jail Paper Keene that I've been doing a series of videos on sex offenders, and all of a sudden last week, I got hit with 3 restraining orders, all relating to my exercise of freedom of speech. So what I'm going through over here, and I've been talking with several folks about, is here in Keene, New Hampshire, we've seen through Ian's videos and through other ones, there's been serious infringements on First Amendment rights. And here in New Hampshire, where it's very easy to get, stalking petitions and stuff like that, it seems that I've become yet another victim of somebody trying to exercise their First Amendment rights, and it just kind of gets thrown down the wayside. I did hear, you guys were talking about some interesting stuff earlier. I've been trying to call in for a while, and I wasn't able to get through, but I appreciate you guys having me on the end of this. I'm actually releasing a video that there's technically an unconstitutional gag order on my jail paper right now. Which
what does that mean? There's a gag order on the jail paper. The jail paper Keen, that's your Facebook page where you post various different sort of investigatory police abuse / whatever other local corruption kind of videos, right? Is it thejailpaperkeen.com? Is that what the URL is?
Yes, sir. And what it is I have an order, and it's for an individual. I can't say his name. Actually, I can say it. This is the radio. It's not social media. His name is John Conley Jr., and he was convicted of sexual contact with a victim under 13, and he was felonious sexual assault on a victim under 13. What the judge wrote in his restraining order is that I, who am the jail paper, am not allowed to say his name on social media under pain of going to jail.
Wow.
That's a gag order.
That's insane.
So what I did, Ian, is I published the video under sex offender versus Thomas Parisi, because that's not his name, right?
Mm-hmm,
but
right.
Literally, a judge in the state of New Hampshire issued what anybody with a law degree or a basic understanding of the First Amendment would see as a gag order that if you mention his name, you will go to jail.
So you had to make a video basically where you dance around this person's identity and still somehow try to tell the story.
Exactly. And the guy is doing this because this documentary I'm making is against the place where he's staying at. And these people who are notorious, there's like a little outfit of people at this place that get restraining orders against other homeless people to kick them out of this homeless shelter. The manager, so it's really convoluted. But now, Ian, I have 5 cases this week because of my jail paper. There's been 15 cases in the last week. So if anybody goes on there, you'll see cyber stalking like you wouldn't believe. But there's been a lot of what the judge referred to as a lot of salacious material.
So hold on. So this judge tells you can't post this person's name who is suing you, even though the case obviously hasn't been heard yet. It's just an initial injunction, right? You can't even say this man's name in social media.
Yeah, basically it's a stalking petition, a typical stalking petition in the state of New Hampshire. They can put special provisions in it. Under the special provision, he literally put a check mark, wrote, I don't want him to say my name on social media. And the judge signed off.
He granted that.
He granted it. Now, the judge who actually heard the case, and if you listen to the audio, I lost it with the video, but the audio, you can hear the judge clearly state that he cannot stop me from either recording it or publishing it. But under fact of law, I have published his name by having him say it in the trial. So we'll see if I'm going to go to jail or not, but I'm going to say it now on the radio. There is no reason that you should go after what used to be a television show at a place that Ian was on the board of directors. I produced five short TV shows every week for 3 years, that a person named in his petition as a news reporter should be able to be sanctioned on their expressly God-given First Amendment right.
And this was an initial hearing, and the full hearing is still to come on this?
No, what it was is I did, Ian, which referred to in the state of New Hampshire as a 5-day hearing. Like within 5 days, you're in front of the judge. We stood in front of Judge Donovan, who I've actually never been in front of before, but he's a really good judge. He was pretty fair. I got to talk for about 15 minutes because Conley's case, there's a video on the jail paper Keen, and I've sent you the video too, is that basically the kid admits that there was no threats. He admits I blocked him from Facebook after I sent him his charges and I never talked to him again for over a month. And he admits to being a registered sex offender that's actively on Facebook, which not only is against Facebook policies, but his probation officer failed to violate him. Like it's a really, sad piece of, investigative work.
But you called this judge good after he tells you that you can't speak publicly?
Oh, yeah, not the, he's not the one that signed.
Oh, it's a different judge.
Donovan, Judge David Forrest. I have 4 cases before him.
Oh, my God. Well, I don't know, it's another question is what do they consider to be social media? Is YouTube social media because people can comment?
Exactly. Well, technically, we're on your radio show, so this is not. So, but if I put on YouTube, if I put on Facebook, because he marked them specifically, I am going to go to jail. But unfortunately, That's already scheduled and it's already happened.
Keep us in the loop, Thomas. Thank you for the call tonight, man. I appreciate hearing from you. It's not uncommon to have these judges just doing all kinds of things that are unconstitutional. Our co-host, Nobody, is also prohibited. He's on bail conditions, as I am with the Crypto 6 case, and he is not allowed to speak on the radio or on television about his case. Greg in New York, you're next up. Go ahead.
Oh, man. Yeah, you guys were talking about the police. I just wanted to suggest, if we had a free market in police, by the way, and neighborhoods could pool some money and decide which police they want for this year to renew a contract, I bet the police would compete on how nice they are and how they actually serve the neighborhood as opposed to serving the state or some other thing.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
And the community would get some sort of a report card on how they did over the course of that year. Do we get anything like that now? I've never seen one.
Nope.
Nope.
What else,
That's
Greg?
kind of neat. So I wanted to talk about how Intercoin is going to be going for the first time on an exchange. And
yeah, I
I'm pretty
mentioned that
excited
tonight. X Markets, exmarkets.com, was really impressed to find out that there's no know your customer requirements to get an account on X Markets.
Yeah, if that's true, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting. They contacted us, and that was one of the things that also surprised us.
They contacted you?
Well, they knew some of our investors, to be honest. It was through our investors. So what we try to do is, it's like if the investors go ahead and, they are the ones who get the money from a pre-sale that's run there, and then they provide the liquidity, I guess, initially for the market making. But whatever. It's nice because this exchange is the first one on which you can trade Intercoin. And yes, it is centralized. But the nice thing about that is right now Ethereum fees are so high that if you did this on Uniswap, it would cost you a lot to buy ITR. If you go on this exchange...
Yeah, Ethereum fees are like $100 or something, right?
Yeah,
like, what are they right now?
I think so, yeah. And especially, what goes into the fee is that first there's the ERC20 token, which is a smart contract itself. And that takes money, gas to transfer. And then you've got to transfer the other token, if there is one, that you're trying to trade it for, USDT. And then there's the logic of the actual Uniswap exchange. So all of that put together is it could be like around $100 just to trade. But on this exchange, it's practically free.
Well, I think it's interesting, to have an exchange that doesn't require know your customer to trade.
I think it's great, and there should be more of them.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. Greg, congratulations on that for Intercoin, and appreciate your call here tonight. Out of time, but we're going to be back tomorrow night for the live Halloween night
Spooky Vision
of Free Talk Live. Join the captain for that tomorrow, and join us online in the meantime, anytime at freetalklive.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest